gentlemen, if you haven't noticed, Devin looks different today, and he changed his name to James Searl, and he joined another band.
I just took my hat off. That's all.
Yes, he's now in Giant Panda Guerilla Dub Squad. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very special guest co-host, James Searl from Giant Panda Guerilla Dub Squad. It's a pleasure to have you here. And it's also super special because we have a super special guest, Mr. Devin Morrison, and we're going to talk about his new album, Wheel and Shoulder. I'm really stoked on this, man. I've been looking forward to the show for a long time.
You know, I've watched just about every episode of the Reggae PodClash, and it's a huge honor for me to be here. Y'all are scholars and absolute, legitimate sources on what I call the biggest genre of music in the world, but also a completely niche genre that so many people don't know the details of. So Devin, I think, is a really incredible artist that I've been listening to for years and years and years. So thank you for inviting me on to be a part of picking his brain.
Heck yeah, man. It's a pleasure. And after this show, it'll just be you and me going forward.
That's right. Yeah,
I think it's going to be magical. I think we're just going to turn this into the James and Roger show, you know?
Yeah, as I said, fully sponsored.
Well, you know what? We're gonna go into the same segments we go into every week, and without further ado, we're gonna go into the record of the week segments. I know you got a record this week as well, but I'll jump in first. So this week I have by Mr. Johnny Ringo. The song is called Push Lady Push. Check it out, everyone.
Push it.
You see me healthy. Me not have drugs. Medical is physical fitness. I drink up egg and Guinness mixed together. Murder! Said I was born in a believer, one down to believe. In the waiting room was me maga daddy. Cost him a fee of 2 guinea while me in the belly. The doctor shout to mommy, say, push lady push. I push and make a youth man born. Can now me grow up and a nice up the lawn. First thing me do when me born me yawn. Cause on a cold and grey Jamaican morn, another little baby child was born in the ghetto. In the ghetto, in case you never know, my name is Mr. Ringo. Me say fi push lady push. Me say fi push and make a youth man born. Me say no throw him away no way. Me say no throw him away no way. So me say fi push lady push. Me say fi push and make a youth man born. Can now him grow up and him a nice up the lawn. First thing him do when him born him yawn. Cause this a health, strength and a energy. A health, strength and a energy. So sugar for your coffee, sugar for your tea. Don't be a DJ if you know healthy. Before you try that, make sure you feed your body and get health, strength and a energy. Health, strength and a energy. So mother, push lady push. Push and make a youth man born. Cause a whole lot of love is will and truly going on. Cause it's a physical fitness. Say that me jump over sickness. Say this a physical fitness. Man, say that me jump over sickness. Me drink up me egg and me Guinness. The other time me chew up a Wrigley's. Slang down, right? Push lady push. Me say fi push and make a youth man born. Cause in the morning when the sun start rise, me in me sweatsuit, me run a couple miles. And when me come back a pure exercise. When me come back a pure exercise. Right? Me bend me back, me touch me toe. Me mama say look at me son, oh poor soul. Come and get your breakfast before it gets cold. Went to the table and what did I say? 2 slices of bread, a bowl of porridge, 2 scald egg and a cup of coffee. Me drink busy, me drink Cersei. That's why coffee and sting not trouble me. So, push lady push. I push and make a youth man born. Cause it's a health.
Yeah, push lady push. Right?
Ooh, youth man born.
Right? Mr. Johnny Ringo, man. I I'm not super familiar with Johnny. I mean, over the years I've heard his name, and I never really dug into his stuff. But I mean, he's got like some really his out of all the DJs, I feel like he takes from a lot of other DJs, and then just does a great job at it. Kind of like the jack of all trades, as far as like, you know, how he's jumping in from style to style. You can tell his influences from other DJs out there. But yeah, man, I mean, one of the cool parts about this era is some DJs would just take the route of, especially Johnny Ringo, talking about just, you know, observation on life in Jamaica. So it could be just randomness stuff. As a matter of fact, and sometimes it's like cooler, you know, to not just talk about something that's maybe stereotypical or something like that. So in this case, he's talking about some girl just straight up giving birth, push lady push, you know? And like, how can you be cool with that? How can you, I think that earns you points as a DJ, you know? And it plays into, it's just freestyle in a way, because I mean, he got his start with the Soul Express and Rippertone sound systems. And then his story was, I'm sure like many DJ stories, which is, you know, they're just around the sound systems, giving it a shot, you know, here's the mic, they pick up the mic, and then they're good, you know? So a lot of the freestyling skill kicks in, where it's like modern rap, or I mean, how rap has been, you know, where it's like just off the cuff, you got to be smart. And I think to take a subject like, you know, someone giving birth, it's like, if you can make that into an interesting song, and if you can like find ways to move around it lyrically, then I think that gets you points, you know, like, here, talk about the styrofoam cup, and you can murder it, you know? But yeah, man, I think I think that's a good example of just that kind of era. Like I said, you don't necessarily need to have the subject of, okay, I'm cool and it's about me or whatever. It's like, dude, let me talk about that.
Yes, bro. You are educating me. You are educating me, as I feel like this segment, because I'm a huge PodClash fan. I watch every time it's on, and I'm always educated on the records. And you guys might take for granted that you have these huge record collections, but the reality is that even me, like, reggae has changed my whole life, that I don't usually know most of these songs. And so to be educated on, you know, the Ringo, say his name again?
Johnny Ringo.
Johnny Ringo, man. Like, I've never heard this song. And, you know, viewers take note, in a lot of hospitals and birthing situations now, you can have tunes blasting. We had reggae blasting. I got 2 kids, and we had reggae blasting when the labor was happening. And man, if I knew about this one, it would have been on repeat, you know?
No kidding. That would be, dude, that would be so cool. I did not know that. I don't have any kids, never been in the operating room. I have a couple pet flamingos, but those aren't really, you know, those are just, I call them my kids.
For them too, I'm sure. But the push baby push with the rhythm, you know, that would really, I think a lot of women giving birth could really be motivated by that. So big up.
That would be cool.
The utility of the song, as well as the clever ability to rap about just anything. And yeah, you know, modern, you know, the birth of hip hop, for sure.
That's crazy. I could totally imagine, like, the wife screaming, the mother screaming. It's like, push, lady, push. It does.
Yeah, man. Ironically, my kids were both born to Bob Marley songs. I mean, I had it on.
No
rant.
kidding.
And my daughter was born to Work, you know, by Bob, and same. And my son was born to Sun is Shining, and it was just like, you know, one of my dreams is to have a record pressed with both of those songs on it, you know, to give to them.
Like, do you want? I mean, the question is, like I said, I have no kids, never gone through that. But do you want to play something soothing, or do you want to play something like in your face, like, get this baby out of me? You know what I mean?
I'm the selector of the house, and so I kind of just had my collection going on random, kind of like because I like the spiritual idea of the random selection from, even though it's digital and from your computer, it's like, well, what comes on, you know, and that's what defines the moment. And now whenever I hear those songs again, you know, the Work song was just like, she was pushing, and it was like Work, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
That whole thing. And then Sun is Shining, you know, my son came out, and every time I hear that song, my son is shining. So, but you know, had I known, this would have been the jam. Johnny Ringo for sure on repeat, because it would have gotten the job done a lot faster, probably.
Well, now you know. I think now you need to have another kid for that reason. Yeah,
you know? Exactly. I'll tell my wife about it. She probably won't be.
Yeah, exactly. Do it just purely based around this song. All right, on that. Well, shoot, I mean, this is your first record of the week, man. So this is a big deal. We'll talk about the tune after we hear it. But what's the artist and what's the song?
The artist is Little Roy, and the song is "Hurt Not the Earth" off of the Pack and House record. And the reason that I chose it is because it was the first reggae vinyl that was put in my hands.
Wow.
You know, it's a huge tune for me.
Wow.
Coming on a totally different subject matter, you know, as reggae spans, you know, so many subject matters. And this is much more from the, you know, we'll talk about it, but from the Revelation kind of spiritual Rastafarian subject. So, but the rhythm, you know, dread and serious. So we'll run it and enjoy.
Heck yeah. Check it out, everyone.
I'm saying them keep heading for total destruction. Earth, not the earth, nor the sea. Oh no, till 140 and 4,000 be free. This earth, not the earth, nor the sea. Oh no, you can't destroy God's monarchy. God and history shall record your judgment. Dread and them scientists, he has prepared his throne for judgment. I know they just can't resist. God and history shall record your judgment. Judgment is at hand. And because them causing so much pollution, the air is filled with pollution. Nothing they can do about it. Their minds are filled with confusion. And every day them keep on living. They keep heading for total destruction. Them keep heading for total destruction. They keep heading for total destruction. They keep heading for total destruction. I'm saying. I'm saying. Earth, not the earth, nor the sea. Oh no, till 140 and 4,000 be free. This earth, not the earth, nor the sea. Oh no, you can't destroy God's monarchy. God and history shall record your judgment. Dread and them scientists, he has prepared his throne for judgment. I know they just can't resist. God and history shall record your judgment. Judgment is at hand. And because them causing so much pollution, the air is filled with pollution. Nothing they can do about it. Their minds are filled with confusion. And every day them keep on living. They keep heading for total destruction. That's the way they planned it. They keep heading for total destruction. Heading for total destruction. They keep 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 heading for total destruction.
Dope,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, man, I could talk about that song for a long time, and I'll try to wrap it quick, but so we can get whatever his name is on. But
Yeah.
that song still does it to me every time. You know, I probably heard that song in like 2004. Elliot Martin from John Brown's Body
Oh, nice.
gave that record to the keyboard player Matt Goodwin, who I lived with, and it was in the Gregory Isaac's private beach party slip. So I didn't even have the LP sleeve that you see up there with the dude smoking chalice.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would just listen to that. And, coming from where I come from, for whatever reason, we didn't have a lot of access, or I didn't know a lot about looking for the dope 7-inches or, the stuff that you and Devin educate us about so much that, again, I don't know if y'all take it for granted. I'm sure you don't. But this was just such a mystical tune and such a mystical record to hear as a young person really diving deep into reggae. And I feel like I'm a general reggae fan. It's changed my life, but I'm not like a PhD scholar in it like y'all. And so I've been listening to this record for just so many years. And when I finally got the sleeve, I learned everything I know about it just from the back liner notes, which is some sources taken from some interviews done with Little Roy in the 90s. So this album originally came out. It didn't come out, this song. It was unreleased. So that's why it says recorded in 1970X, because they don't even know.
Wow.
And it was recorded at this place called the Packin' House. And Little Roy had started this label called the Tafari Syndicate. And he started it with these brothers, Marvin Scorcher and Maurice Munchie Jackson. And
Munchie.
You know Munchie. Okay, see, I don't know anything about these guys other than the back of the record, but Munchie's mom had a like food and beverage distribution service in Kingston. She supplied all the prisons and all of the hospitals with food. So they had this reel-to-reel in the room that had all of the storage of the food packages that they called the Packin' House. And it was just like really tight. And what Little Roy is saying is that they would have rhythms from all the famous studios, and they're listed on the back, Treasure Isle, everywhere,
Wow.
Randy's, and they would just spend all night, like him and even Dennis Brown, and they would voice over these tunes, over these rhythms. And and this is one of them that came out that never got released. So Pressure Sounds released it in 1999 on this compilation, and that's how it made its way to me. And one of the things that I love about reggae, and that's really been a draw to me, is that it's there's such ancient subject matters discussed when it comes to Rastafarianism, when it comes to the history that religion had on Jamaica, and whether people are knowledgeable about Rastafari or not, the fact is that it really powered this music. So much of it, it was so inspiring to so many. So I try to do my due diligence and give respect to that religion and that faith. And you can. One thing that's very interesting about it is that they would read the Bible and interpret it to modern situations that were happening in the 20th century. So 20th century is this time of, drastic change in the world. And they see, Haile Selassie is, second coming of Christ, and that this was revelation time that we're living in right now, And when you go and read Revelation, which I do as more of like a scholar, not necessarily as a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but when you read it, it's easy to make those connections. So the opening lyric is from Revelation 7:3, I believe, and I made a typo on the dash there. It's actually the lyric that says 144,000 hurt not the earth or the sea until 144,000 are free, and that's directly lifted from Revelation, talking about these 4 angels that are going to come to all 4 corners of the earth, east, west, north, and south, and destroy the earth. They're going to hurt the sea, they're going to hurt the earth, but God is saying in the Bible, well, don't do this until the 144,000 make it up to heaven, and that's the 12,000 that belong to each 12 tribe of Israel. And do the math, it's 144,000. And of course, when I heard the song, I didn't know anything about that. And I'm just thinking, wow, in the 70s, these guys were already talking about the pollution, the air is filled with pollution, and these, profiteers, ExxonMobil, all these people, they don't even do anything about it, Nothing they can do about it when it's all done. It's a very hard thing to reverse. So I just thought that was a really prescient message, and it's always stuck with me. And yeah, I love the groove. I love it that it's got like a heavy one drop, and the cymbal grab. There's 6 cymbal grabs in it, and I would be curious to know what you thought about who is playing on it, because on the back of the record, everybody who's ever, the top players are listed. Robbie Shakespeare, Family Man, Fully Fullwood, Santa Davis, Horsemouth, Harley Barrett, they're all Ranchy, they're all listed, but unless you have a real keen ear, I think you wouldn't really be able to tell who was playing. I think maybe it was Horsemouth on drums, but I couldn't. I'm not the one to nail that.
And that's a good question. I'd have to even listen to it again just to like get the vibe of it. What I want to do when I hear it, I hear this like, and we can come from this perspective because we're all musicians, but there's such a pocket, and it's definitely harder for us to even get close to that pocket, let alone achieve it. But what I find is sometimes you're in a session and there's certain grooves or vibes or moods that you want to portray, like maybe the producer's like it's going to be a dread kind of tune, and I always rely on, I mean, sometimes it's just magical because it's like the temperature in the room, it's the time of day, it's the in order to record and really faithfully get in the pocket of a tune like this, when I hear that, I'm like, wow. Like everything needs to go right. Not for them, not for people that are creating this music, the Jamaicans, but definitely for us that are trying to get a vibe afterwards, because it does heavily just rely on that. I know by experience, you're like, all right, cool. Maybe you're feeling, maybe it's like 5-6 o'clock during the day, the sun's going down, and you've already wind down, and as opposed to like you're wired up on coffee and you're trying to do a groove like that,
Yes.
But dude, heavy tune, man, really dready, really
heavy tune, man.
It's just total mood setter from the top, right from the jump. It's just like, dang, get in that pocket, and man, I love it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's good. Go for it.
There's so many like little. It's such a feel, like the piano that's happening, and even when they go to the chord change, like up to, it's like E minor to F to G. When they hit the G on the chorus or whatever, I think in the second time it happens like a little bit late, like kind of on an off one. And did they talk about that? Did they plan that? Did they just do that? It really like gives some anticipation for that chorus. They're headed for total destruction coming in again. And yeah, just imagine that it just must have been a feel and a vibe. And those guys were really in tune with each other when they were playing. And the other thing that just to round out the Rastafarian tip is that so much of, when it comes to me, reggae in the end comes down to, it's an anti-racist music. And this is kind of how it was. There's so much focus on that because Haile Selassie was a Pan-African, he was getting together African unity. And he was representing the third world in the time when, Africa had been left to die. And that's what I see so much in Jamaican music, is that it's like, it's showing the light on the dark side of colonialism, that otherwise, me growing up in Rochester, New York, I wouldn't really have a lot of firsthand access to that. And so learning from these lyrics and especially just, Rastafarianism is, to me, more than a religion, than also just like a really good reflection of the other side, the half that has not been told, Right. Definitely. So, until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior, that's Haile Selassie. That's the message of reggae to me, 100%. So I love tunes like this. I love learning about them. And of course, it's the groove that gets you first. And at the time that I first heard this, I was listening to tons of Midnight. And I felt like this was kind of... I
love Midnight, yeah.
Love Midnight, and that St. Croix just like extra slow. And Panda was really trying to be disciplined on that extra slow style. Nice. And I mean, we lost it. We couldn't hang on to it because for whatever reason, I think we were thinking like, oh, we're not pulling it off live in a way that's energizing people, in the way that, like you're saying, these guys just happen to be in tune with each other on that groove. And this style, we actually by accident like put it onto CD from vinyl, and I think we had the speed a little slower, so it was even slower when we were listening to it. And I remember Tommy Benedetti, who's the drummer of John Brown's Body, walked by us while we were in the van blasting this tune, and he's like, "Is this what you guys do? You slow this shit down and listen to it? Like, what is,
chopped and screwed, man." Yeah,
he's like, "God damn you," it was funny. We still laugh about it like when this song comes on. But yeah, man, thanks. I've always wanted to talk about this song, and
Yes, for sure, man. I think you're onto something there. Chopped and screwed reggae. For anybody out there that knows the chopped and screwed, it's when they slow down.
Yeah, man. The
Some,
real
some
crunk.
rapping. Exactly,
The real
exactly.
crunk.
Take something like this and slow it down even more, man. That's
Like
a
me.
great tune. That's a great tune. I dig it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been our Records of the Week, and it has been brought to you by our merchandise, Reggae PodClash merchandise. Go to thereggaepodclash.com or rootfire.net, and you'll find it there. We got beanies, shirts, cups, fisherman's hats right there. I think in the white, right? I look good in that one. I got to get it still. I would think I would look fabulous in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. We're gonna get some more merch too. We want to get frisbees and Reggae PodClash lawnmowers, and I'll just do everything, right? Just get everything under the sun. But yeah, please go support us, buy some stuff, get some cool looking merch, and the money goes to help supporting this show, gives it legs to keep moving. So go check
Roger.
that out. Yes, sir.
I just got to fanboy out a little bit. I have the black Reggae PodClash shirt, and I just want to say, all the people out there, it is a nice fit. It is like nice material. I wear it all the time. I'm always repping, and I even got the tank top for my wife, and she looks fine in it. She looks fine all the time. But she wears that all the time. It's a really nice cut. So
dope.
Don't hesitate. Go to rootfire.net and order that merch because it's high quality stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a cool shirt, man. It's cool.
Yeah, we try to do that. You don't know what you're getting when you order something online. You just don't. And so we definitely took time to figure out, okay, what's it going to be? What kind of shirt's going to be pressed on everything?
Been in the merch game a bit, probably. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So reassure you're getting some quality stuff out there. And speaking of quality stuff, our special guest today is a quality man, and he produces quality music. And he has been my co-host for, I think, the show a little more than a year now, and it's a very special show because now he is the guest. The tables have turned. We're switching it up on him. We're going to be talking about his new album, Wheel and Shoulder. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the stage Mr. Man-Like-Devin. Devin, what's up, dude?
Hey, whoa! The view from
Hey,
down
buddy.
here.
man.
It's just a whole new world. It's
You're
a whole
like-
new world.
Little Brady Bunch vibes going on.
Yeah, man. Well, Devin, how are you doing today?
Well, that I gotta say, putting my Reggae PodClash hat on, that might have been like the best record of the week segment we've had
For sure.
so far. I was just like, wow, keep going with this. The Hurt Not the Earth, because I love that song and I've heard it. I've known that song forever, and I never really made the connection with, like, because I was kind of where you were, James, as you were describing when you first heard that tune. Yeah. And you were like, oh, they're like on some anti-pollution, environmentalism stuff. That's kind of where I was with it. I didn't really even like realize. I think I subconsciously like knew that those were lines from the Bible, but I never like thought too long about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, wow, it's got a whole new amazing meaning to me now. Like, just like what, and even I was just imagining like the songwriting session, because you were talking about how they would put on rhythms and listen to them and like write some songs, and I was just imagining like, oh, it's like this is a great angle, for this tune is like, hurt not the earth, because don't get it twisted. Like, one of these days we're going to hurt the earth, but not yet. Like, we're doing it. You guys are doing it too soon,
And isn't that the whole point of Revelations, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't it crazy? I mean, now I don't want to get into like having this a Bible study, but really think about it. The fact that you're saying, okay, they're taking from Revelations, taking from the Bible, and it's like, well, it's predicting the future. So
Yeah,
it's true. It's
there's a lot there. Yeah, real heads know. They were some real heads back then.
Exactly. And
Dreadlocks and all.
and I also have to second Roger's idea that you might have to have a third kid just so you can push lady
Dude, push baby
during the
push.
birth. Yeah, make it happen, James.
Also, Little Roy talks about I'm gonna try to lead into you on this, is that he talks about on the back of that record how important lyric writing is and how it takes time to write really good lyrics. This is not like this song wasn't written off the cuff like maybe Johnny Ringo was, in that style, to have that ability to just spit freestyle and the ability also to really write well thought out lyrics. Little Roy is coming on the other side of that. He's saying that we would spend time in the packing house really thinking about these words, making sure they fit together well. And Devin, I feel like you do that. I feel like you do due diligence to your lyrics, and I noticed that they seem to be in really proper place all the time when I study. I've been studying your lyrics for many, many years now. As listeners may know, Man-Like-Devin wears many hats. He is Devin the record collector and the selector. He's Devin the writer and the editor. He's Devin the activist. And he's Devin who was the founder, one of the founders of the Expanders, which is one of my favorite groups and how I got to know you.
He's Devin the dude. Devin the dude.
Devin the dude, you know, Devin the Reggae PodClash host. And tonight we're here to talk about Devin the acoustic reggae, rocksteady, and ska solo musician who's, you know, just putting out one of definitely going to be my absolute favorite record for a long time. I've already been blasting it here. I'm in Turkey right now and visiting my wife's family. And in the morning time, we're waking up. We got the Aegean Sea behind us, and we're eating Turkish breakfast, and we're listening to Man-Like-Devin. And, you know, I'm getting the tunes in my head and really reviewing it. It's beautiful, beautiful music, brother.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, James definitely hit on it. And I tell Devin this all the time to the point where he thinks I'm just lying to him now. Just a blunt-faced lie to his face.
It's hard with
because I say it all the time. But, you know, and being a musician like we all are, and you know, we have our contemporary musicians that we know, and a lot of them are really good friends of ours, but sometimes you don't get turned on by their songwriting. It is what it is. It's just natural. I mean, you know,
you like what you like.
People are different levels of songwriting, and there are levels to that. Now I get it. Songwriting is just it's all about interpretation. You know, you could be very literal and boring, and it could touch someone.
It's subjective.
It's subjective for sure, but I think there's something to be said for a true lover of music. I think that subjectiveness starts becoming a little more focused. You know what I mean? Where you can now separate a good song that uses good wordplay and good meter. You know what I mean? And so that is where I could definitely second what James is saying, is that you have that locked down more so than anybody I know personally. You know, so yeah, man.
That's very nice of you guys. I think that, you know, I really do believe that it's very subjective in terms of, you know, what kind of music you like, what kind of lyrics you gravitate towards, and I know this because, you know, so many groups whose lyrics I maybe am not super into have so much success, and the reason they're having that success is because they're speaking to a lot of people. You know, people are hearing what they're saying and like taking it to heart, and it means a lot to them. You know what I mean? So that right there is proof to me that, you know, it's a very subjective thing. And you know, nothing in life is this simple, but if I can break it down to something simple, it's like there's the lyric writing where it's not so much the poetic execution of the subject delivery that's important. It's more just like the, you know, this is, I want to tell people that they should never give up and that life is beautiful and you're beautiful too. And I'm just going to say that, and people are going to appreciate that sentiment. And that's like one side of lyric writing, right? And then there's another, which is, you know, you want to convey those same sentiments, but you want to do it in a way that you feel is poetic and has some kind of, you know, some skill level to it, or whatever the case may be. You might view it just different, you know, like as a puzzle or something. It's just like something that you're trying to take your time and really make it into something that you feel really happy with, you know, afterwards. And it's just what you grew up listening to, I think. You know, I grew up listening to songs like Hurt Not the Earth and all that stuff. And then way before even listening to reggae, like my mom's a great songwriter. She's a great lyricist. And she would write country tunes. And she loved country music. Yeah. And today, you know, country music gets a horrible rap because, you know, the stuff that's called country now is...
Hey, I like Randy Travis, man. Come on.
Well, I do too, because that's the era from the, like, you know, 50s through the 80s even. Like, even through in the 80s, there was, like, good country music coming out. Good, where, like, the songs were good. And Randy Travis had some good songs. And my mom would listen to that. And so I think I really got into... Like, the kind of songs my mom liked were kind of, like, that second category of lyric writing that I was talking about, where it would, you know, you had to figure it out, and it took you a second to be like, oh, this is what this song is, you know, now I get it. It took me like 3 listens, but this is what this guy is talking about, or this is what this woman is talking about, and that was
Easter
what I grew
eggs,
up.
yeah.
You know, maybe it's about Easter eggs, or maybe you thought it was about Easter eggs.
No, Easter eggs in the sense of something that's hidden that you may not get first go around, second go around, but now it's prolific, you know, maybe even years later.
Like that. Did you just come up with Easter eggs right now?
No, not at all. It's been around. That's what they call
like
when you watch a movie, and there's like something hidden that you didn't realize, was there. That's what they call them, Easter eggs, for sure.
nice.
Video games have lots of Easter eggs in
Video
them.
games have Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I never- wow.
Devin, on this album, Wheel and Shoulder that you're putting out, I feel like you've thought about writing lyrics a lot, as we can tell. Your insight is very deep. I think you've spent many years, as you say, as a child, kind of thinking about this. And I was remembering that I always think of the great songs that I love. They kind of run in the same way of a joke, like a great joke. Like there's a setup, and then the chorus is the punchline, and that's where it all ties together. That's where you're getting that thing. And I'm not a person who really hears lyrics first when I listen to music. I have so many songs that I've loved my whole life that when I went back and looked at the lyrics, my mind was double blown because of how good the lyrics were. And I always think about this when I'm listening to the songs that you write, because I feel like you really have that formula dialed down where you have a great setup and then the punchline happens and it's this iconic, really catchy chorus that means something. It makes the lyrics make sense. You do it all over this record. I feel like a lot of the choruses, Merciless comes to mind. It's like one of the tunes. Is that with your father on harmonica? Is that the tune?
Yeah. Shout out to Tom.
Talking about how people don't have mercy, and then Merciless. I don't know the exact lyrics, but as a guy that doesn't listen to lyrics, those caught me right away. And I was kind of wondering just how you go about writing these songs. And, does it start with the chorus? Do you have an idea of what you want the song to be about? And if you could just kind of let us into your creative world a little bit, I would really, as an artist and a songwriter, just love to pick your brain about that.
Well, first of all, that song is one of my favorite on the record because, the whole record is me and my brother Patrick playing all the music, and that song has my dad playing harmonica. So it's the first time that myself, my brother, and my dad, who my dad taught me how to play guitar, and then I taught Patrick, and so my dad's always been the musician in the family, and so the fact that we all finally got on a song together, is really special to all of us. So it might be my favorite song just from that standpoint. It just means the most to me. But as far as how a song comes about, it can really be different. That specific song, and I've done this a lot. I know in the Expanders that we had a bunch of songs that they kind of came about this way, is that I had one part of the song, right? I would start, years ago, I started writing this tune, and the thought behind it was there's so little compassion nowadays for other people's story. You see somebody suffering, you might see, your unhoused neighbor or an immigrant, and there's no compassion for what this person is going through, what has led them to where they're at. And it's almost I can imagine on their part a feeling of hopelessness that I'm not even going to get a chance to ever tell my story because no one's going to listen to me. They just don't want to hear it. This society already has a built-in cultural rule that whatever happens to me is my own fault, right? That's to me, that's capitalism. You did it to yourself. If it's happening to you, you did it. And so it's just this feeling of hopelessness that you can't ever explain yourself. And that song just kind of came out of just thinking about that and feeling man, there's just so much merciless. And so there's so much mercilessness. And I had that, the first part of the song, and I think it was over different chords. It was a totally different thing. And I just couldn't, and this happens to me a lot with a song. I'll write a verse or two and I can't figure out where to go with it. But I know that there's some good stuff there. And I'm not just going to abandon it, And then maybe with that song, it might've been a few years later that I came back to it and just immediately was oh, this chorus, Fire for the Merciless. And maybe I'll change up the chords to, the chords are I call, in music, I think there's some hit chords, right? Some hit chord changes that get used all the time because they lend themselves to hits. And that's one where it's not to get too deep for people who don't know music, right? But it's a B flat, G minor, C minor, F, right? So that that those four chords lend themselves to just writing catchy melodies, So I changed it. I think from whatever it was, I changed it to that. and then wrote that hook, and then it's got a little B part too, where it's like a little pre-chorus or whatever. And you know, I remember like coming up with, like, the second time I revisited it, putting those things together and being like, yes, it's done. So that's like one method that works a lot for me. There are other times where, you know, a song will come quicker and I'll write it in a day or two, and kind of like the whole, I think if I come up with a chorus first or a hook first, things tend to go quicker, because I'm like, all right, this is it, and then I can write some verses around it. When I come from the verse angle, then it maybe takes a little bit longer, because I'm like, okay, there's some stuff here, but this is not like, we don't have the hook yet, we don't have the chorus.
Right. A good chorus probably ignites the excitement to like to now work on the verses or whatnot. You know, when you have a good hook and chorus, I'm sure. Dude, about this song too, Tom, like your pops, if you took the harmonica out and never played it for me, I think the song would set a mood and a tone, and it would be a certain thing. And your dad's approach like totally changes the palette. It changes the flavor, because he has like this, I don't want to say soulful, right? It's just the word that's thrown around a lot, but it just totally, in my opinion, for the better, obviously, but his ad-libbing and the way he plays around the song just totally makes it different than if that harmonica wasn't there. Did you let him, how was it like directing your dad? Like, how does that happen? Walk us through that. Like,
so,
is it like, you know?
Actually, my dad is a certain kind of personality. He's just one of the best people I've ever known. He's just easygoing, like smart, funny, but like really the easygoing part. My dad is just like one of those people that you like to be around. He's a great listener. You know, he's one of the rare people in life that when you tell them something, you really feel like he's listening to you and asking good follow-up questions and stuff. And my brother, Patrick, is a lot like my dad. Like I feel like I got a lot from my mom, and my brother got a lot from my dad. And so I told Patrick, because he's a great musician and he knows, like, my brother knows reggae music. He's one of those people I trust, like, to be like, hey, I've got this tune, write a banjo part or a guitar part or a bass line. And we all know this. We've talked about this a million times. There's lots of people in our lives that are great musicians, right? Better musicians than we are by far, but we don't really trust them in the Jamaican music realm. You know, if you bring them into a reggae situation, you're like, okay, bro, I know, like, how good you are, but, like, you don't.
Drummers.
It's like any music. If you're not really listening to it, then you're not going to know what to do to make it sound like reggae. Patrick, I trust his Jamaican musical ears, because he's been listening to it, you know, for as long as I have. And so I asked him to produce my dad on that song. I was like, I don't even want to be there. Like, can you just, like, you know, go?
That's
and
dope.
so they had a session, and my brother said it went well, and I think he chopped it up a little bit, and he sent me it, and I was like, yeah, that's it. So I wasn't there for my dad's recording of it, like, on purpose, because I just know how well my dad and my brother work together, and I knew that was going to bring out, like, the real magic on that, and it did. Like, I'm really just happy to have him on that tune.
Total shredder.
And, you know, even if it hadn't have sounded good, I would have just been, like, stoked, but, like, I was so stoked when I heard it. I was like, man, he really just nailed this harmonica.
Did you
I
guys,
just thought.
I want to real quick. Do you know how to play harmonica, or does Patrick, or no? Like,
no, neither.
Okay.
You know, I'd be surprised if Patrick can't play a little bit, because Patrick can play everything. I have tried and never succeeded, and it's on my list of, like, things I want to do. I've never, like, gotten over the harmonica hump.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, James.
Oh, I'm in the notes when I was listening to the record, I just put perfect harmonica placement. You know, this is like how a harmonica should be given to a song, and it really evokes that connection between country and reggae to me. It almost sounds like a country song when it starts out to me, like an old school cool country song, like George Jones or something. And
Right.
And that's so interesting that you talk about your mom. And I was going to ask you, you know, more about your family, but now it's so telling, you know, that we have these families of musicians, that it's so nice when you're supported and encouraged, and can really, I mean, what a dream to be able to work with your brother and your father. And when I saw the name, I didn't even connect it to you at first. I'm like, oh, he got a friend on the album. Some cool. I wonder who this guy is. Cause I know your brother's in the Honey Drops too, but, thought this was just another, I guess.
My brother's in the Feet Warmers. They get confused because they both have California at the beginning. So there's the California Honey Drops, who are featured on my record.
They are, okay.
And then my brother is in a group called the California Feet Warmers. So the confusion is is understandable because their names are so
California.
similar.
Knows how to party.
That's right.
Yep. And you come from the city of L.A., correct?
That's right. That's right. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in a town called Van Nuys.
So what was that like? Because coming from the East Coast, you know, we were watching movies that were all set in LA, but it wouldn't have dawned to me that there was this throwback culture that also exists, which I think, you know, for you to be so steeped in classic reggae, which again, I feel like the Expanders, which was the band that you started with, specifically as a mission was on that throwback sound to bring back, you know, the old sounds, you know, and in a new way. And I just wanted to know what your youth was like, how you got introduced to reggae and how specifically you got to dive in so deep to be able to, at a young age, reference all of this stuff and put it into your tunes. Growing up with a musical family, you know, you might have started writing country songs. You might have, you know, been in a grunge band. And I just never knew about how cool maybe the LA scene was. So please enlighten me.
Well, I really like, when I first started playing music, I was really, I grew up at like the right time in LA where there were so many different like popular musics that were good, that were happening at that time that I thought were good, you know? So when I was like 11 or 12 and was starting to play guitar, that's when like, you know, Nirvana was huge and things like that. And I loved that kind of stuff. I loved like early 90s, you know, we have a radio station in LA called K-Rock, and early 90s K-Rock stuff, you know, so like Nirvana, like Stone Temple Pilots, like Alice in Chains, like those kind of bands, you know. But I also always really gravitated to like, I guess you would call it like skate punk, and it's like the kind of punk that people who are really into punk, like they look down on this kind of punk, you know what I mean? Because it's like melodic, and the songwriting is catchy, and it's not like the crusty like yelling stuff, which I do like too. But even before I knew what like punk was, I was hearing Rancid on the radio and stuff like that, and I was always gravitated to that. And in junior high, in like 7th grade, in the first band we started, one of the first songs we played was Time Bomb by Rancid, and that's a third wave ska song, right? But we didn't know that it was ska. We were copying like the guitar pattern, so it was like, you know, chink 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 chink. But we were just like, okay, this is just another like guitar pattern that exists within rock music. No, like it didn't dawn on us that like, no, this is like something called ska. We didn't even know, but like it's funny to look back. It's like those were the songs we were gravitating to. Like anything that had like a ska beat, we were gravitating to it before we even knew what ska was. So I was into that, and I was into like Bad Religion because we grew up. I think it must have something to do with where I grew up, because even though Bad Religion's, you know, about those guys are like 15 years older than me or something, they grew up like within a mile or two of my house. Like that area is where that sound started, you know, and Bad Religion really started that skate punk sound where the drums are going like, and like, you know, the melodies are really melodic and there's lots of harmonies, and, you know, those dudes, the two songwriters in that band are great songwriters, great lyricists. And so I was into that. And then I guess like throughout junior, like the next year, like 8th grade, that's when like I can't claim to have like been into ska when it was like truly underground and no one knew what it was. Like I was a little too young for that. But by the time I was in 7th, 8th grade, it was starting to get on the radio, like that Rancid tune, like Real Big Fish, like bands like that, Less Than Jake, Mighty Boss Tones, all that stuff. And I loved it all. Like all of that I really gravitated towards. So like now I'm into like, you know, I'm in like 8th grade, like really into like third wave ska and stuff like that. And this is like 95, 96 or something. And then then I always loved Sublime also. Like I just loved Sublime, and I started to like make the connections like, oh, this kind of stuff all kind of sounds the same. And then when I met my friend Ben Malamette, who's one of my best friends to this day, he's the original drummer of Expanders, and he's the drummer of the California Honey Drops.
Okay.
I met him in junior high, and he was friends with this kid named Devin Steffens, who is the son of Roger Steffens, who is the reggae archivist, one of the great, you know, reggae archivists in the world, and he lives here in LA. And just through that random link, you know, Ben was getting into reggae through Devin and his dad Roger, and giving it to me, like making me tapes. And they also had an older friend named Rich, and he was making us tapes. And so Ben and I really, you know, early on made that connection. Like we knew before, like our friends knew that like, oh, wait a minute, like ska, like this is the third wave of ska, and there was like two-tone in the 80s, and then ska started like in 1959, 1960 in Jamaica and became reggae. So we learned all about that stuff like pretty soon, and then like that's when it just all clicked to me, because I love ska. And then like there really is something in the melodic songwriting in Jamaican music, like in Bob Marley and in, you know, all the great songwriters, that's it's kind of like similar to like the skate punk thing to me. And I know a lot has been talked about the similarities between reggae and punk, but that's always, you know, talking about groups like the Clash, you know, and like early like 70s, you know, mid 70s, late 70s punk groups. But to me, there's something similar even to like the later, like the skate punk, Bad Religion, No Use for a Name, you know, No Effects bands, because of the how the lyrics and the melodies are so melodic. And so I was already like into that, and then I like heard it in Jamaican music too. And, you know, whether that's just me, whether that's just coincidental, or there really is some link that, you know, between the punk and reggae thing that was influencing those punk bands that I was listening to write like that, and then it sounded like Jamaican music. I don't know. I don't know about that, but
I'm curious to know at that moment, though. Let's pause right there at that
Yeah.
moment, right? Because that's a big jump. You mentioned all these bands, you know, the Rancids of the world, and they're doing this modern stuff. What do you remember? What the first, you're at Stefan's house, you're discovering this new old kind of vibe. Do you remember a group or what the song was, or something that you was like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
like the switch?
yeah,
you
for
know?
sure. And I have to mention too that, you know, the fact that Jamaican musicians like to smoke weed and sing about weed was huge for me. You know, when I was like 13 years old, I was just like, oh my God, like this is, yeah, of course. You know, so that was a big part of the switch too, where I'm like, I'm obviously into this. But yeah, Rich, so Ben had been going to Roger's house before I was able to go. And he and my friend Rich that I mentioned made me a tape that I took on like a summer vacation that I went on with my parents. And it had like Toots and the Maytals and Steel Pulse. It had Win Them by Leo Graham. I know you love that tune, Roger. Just had like just random stuff like that, and then also had like some punk. They put some like Rancid on it, and I was like, so, you know, it was flowing pretty seamlessly. But I remember like, yeah, like hearing like Sweet and Dandy by Toots was on that. There was some like probably like Steel Pulse's, you know, bigger songs from True Democracy, like Rally Around the Flag and those kind of tunes. And I think you know, there's that one, and Ravers, you know, by Steel Pulse. Those were maybe like on that first tape that I heard.
Wow.
But then, like right at that time too, my dad, who got wind of the fact that I was into reggae, he actually told me about this reggae show on Sundays on KPFK here in LA, 90.7 FM with Chuck Foster, that's still going on to this day, called Reggae Central. And he's like, oh, there's this show on Sundays, you should listen to it. And this was before, it wasn't pre-internet, like people, like I had an email address and stuff, but it was before YouTube. It was before you could like go access, you know, this music online. You know, if the band you knew about had a website, you could go check that out. But like, you couldn't just like do some immediate deep dive into Jamaican music, you know. So that was like the way I heard music for years. I would buy tapes, like you know, John Butcher from the Expanders and Ben and our friends would come over to my house on Sunday, and we would just we would put the tape in and record the reggae show. And then I still have these tapes too, and I'd record the whole thing, and then I would get another blank tape and go back and listen to it, and the songs that I really liked, I would bounce those over to like this new tape, and I would make these like master tapes of tunes from the reggae show, of like the ones I liked. And that was huge. Like that's how I found out about like the Ethiopians, Justin Hines, the Gladiators, so many, you know, because Chuck Foster will play the obscure stuff, you know, and that's really where I found out about a lot of that stuff. And I just loved it, like right from the beginning. And I was trying to, because I had been writing punk songs and stuff because I was in bands, and I tried writing reggae songs, but it just like wasn't working. And I was recognizing that it wasn't working. You know, I was like, nah, this isn't it. You know, so it was a long time between like me like learning how to play music and try to write songs and listening to reggae, and then like when I actually wrote like a reggae song that I was happy with. Like there was a long time. It took a while.
Do you have any of those songs? Like, do you remember any of them, or like You know,
the throwaways.
Yeah,
we had
I'd like to hear it.
me, Ben Malamet, and our friend Christian Meadows. Shout out to Christian. He lives here in Venice, and he was in a very popular band that was like played on K-Rock. And he's gonna be mad at me. I'm blanking on their name. That sucks. Anyway, we had a band in junior high called MFB, and
Nice.
we were writing mainly punk songs, but we had one song called the reggae song, and
Yes.
and it was like like
That's
beat
always
was
the case,
totally-
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Or like, if James wrote the song, like that's the name of the song. It's called James' song. Okay, cool. The one reggae
Exactly.
song.
Yeah, no, it was the reggae song. And it was like, I always like make fun of like when you hear a band like trying to play reggae and they don't really listen to it. I call it the horse trot beat, where it's like boom, ding, go bing, boom, boom, ding, go bing. You know what I mean? And that's totally what we were doing. Like that was like the beat of the song, and yeah, I remember
That's
it.
dope. Okay.
I remember it, but you're
I'll
not
get you
gonna
to play
into
it for us one
Yeah.
day. You don't have to play it today. Yeah, man. This and we're speaking of discovering new musics right now. When you're discovering reggae, and obviously you've been listening to it for years. And when I first heard these songs, it's definitely something new. You can force an explanation and go, okay, I've heard a song before that's already acoustic reggae. I've heard reggae with banjo in it. I've heard reggae with harmonica in it. But you really can't. I'd be hard pressed to see if you can come up with something that's pretty on par with all that. And you've created that. You've almost created. That's what new musics are. They're pieces of musics of the past. And man, I couldn't do it if you asked me to do it. And you did it naturally, and you do it so well. When you listen to this whole album, there is a total like flavor that just it's continuous and it's new. It's a new genre. It's a new freaking genre. So my question is, what are you going to call it? What's the genre?
It's called Banjolele. Yeah.
Did you? The question at the end of that is like, was that something that just 100% natural? You just wanted to, it just came together, or did you sit down and you thought about it? You're like, all right, I'm going to do something out of the box.
I have to give my brother Patrick Morrison all the credit for this. The way it's like, when I was in the Expanders, the way that songs would come about was that I would write a tune and I would record a little acoustic version of it, first on my 4-track and later like on my phone, and maybe put a little harmony, maybe add like a guitar, like doing like John Butcher and I, when we were just an acoustic band to start with, used to do this, like where if the chord's doing this, then the other person would be doing like kind of simulating like the organ, like what the left hand organ bubble is doing, just to give it that like pocket that I think is like crucial in reggae.
That's cool.
And so like I would maybe put that on, like the little guitar bubble. Normally not a bass line, because Cheeky's, bass player from Expanders, is such a great bass player that I just knew he was going to come up with something better than I could. But be a little simple thing of like, here's the song, maybe a little bubble and some harmonies, and I would give it to everyone to listen to. And then the Expanders, the group would come in and work their magic and turn it into the music that's on the albums. But there was always something really cool about those little demo versions. And the guys in the band liked them, I liked them, and I always had this idea in my head that like, someday it'd be nice to do like a solo project where I release maybe like a little more hi-fi version of that, and that's what this record was going to be. Like, as Roger, Roger who engineered this album, for people who don't know, and he was there every step of the way. And when we first started trying to record it, it was like, that's what it was going to be. It was like figuring out, okay, like how do we mic the acoustic guitar? And are we going to do this, what's the process going to be? But that was, in my mind, it was always going to be that. Like, better, a little bit more hi-fi versions of what those demos were. And then it all changed when, I always knew that I was going to ask Patrick to put some lead guitar on some stuff and some banjo, because he's such a great musician. And like I said, he knows Jamaican music so well. And I have, there's a ska tune on the record called When the Evening Come. And he wanted to put, I wanted him to put banjo on it. So we did that. And then he was like, hey, you should let me put an upright bass on it. And I was kind of against it, because I was like, I don't know, like then it's gonna be too full, and this is supposed to be like a really raw thing, and I don't know. And he's like, well, just let me try it. So he did, and when he sent it to me, I was just like, that was like the moment where it sounded like the record was gonna sound, because I had put hand drum on. I have this great kete drum. It's not here right now, that I got from Zion Love. And I had put that on, so it had like the foundation there, the kete and the skank and his banjo part. And then when he put that upright bass, immediately I was stoked and like, oh crap, now we have to do this to every song, because like we can't have like one song that sounds like this and then the rest of the album, sounds like what it was gonna sound like. So it really was Patrick who I have to like thank for that. And you know what, Roger, do me a favor. You see down there below where it says super special mystery guest, click on that real quick.
Okay. Boom, 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 boom.
Special. Oh my God.
What's up, guys?
Dun, dun, dun.
What's up, players? Can you hear me?
All right. Now that we got the really cracking, now later days. All right, Patrick. Yes. So this is what I wanted to really get to.
My record now.
I'm joking.
You did the right thing. Yes, everybody. This is and James. I don't know if you and Patrick have ever
We've
met
never
before.
met.
This is Patrick Morrison, who I was just saying is
Look it up.
This is my brother Patrick, who so Patrick, I was just telling everybody how you came in with the idea to put bass, and that really like changed the whole trajectory of how the record sounded. And am I lying? Is that true?
I think that's about how it went. I remember. I'm not sure if it was that song though. In my memory, it was what the hell is the first song on the record? What's it called?
End of Loneliness.
End of Loneliness. I think that was the first one I put bass on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember putting bass on it. I remember playing it in my living room. I was like, oh, like I think this sounds kind of cool. I'm gonna send this to Devin and see what he says. I remember you saying
the other one was
like,
the first one I heard, but.
Oh, maybe you're right. But yeah.
Either way. Yeah, Patrick. Like I said, he knows Jamaican music and he's a great musician, and so I just knew he was going to do great things with once I put the songs in his hands. But as far as like to your original question, Roger, is like, because I do think I feel good. I feel okay saying this because I make no claims to like the quality of the record, but just in terms of what the instrumentation is. I've never heard a record like this in terms of like. Just it's a reggae, it's reggae and ska and rocksteady, but all acoustic, with upright bass and banjo and harmonies and stuff. So again, like that could be a bad thing or a good thing. I'm not like making any claim to the quality. I'm just saying that it is something different, and I think a lot of that has to do with Patrick for sure.
It evokes so much. I had these exact questions that Roger asks, which is awesome. That we're both thinking the same thing. Definitely without talking about it. There is no other record that sounds like this, yet it's very classically folk music. It reminds me of folk music all around the world. And I'm not sure if that's because of the acoustic nature of things. And as Roger said, we've heard these instruments on various reggae tracks, but we haven't necessarily heard them all together at once in this way and in a totally acoustic fashion. And I was trying to think of, is there like some Mento records that he was listening to that really inspired this? But I just think it is totally unique and also sounds ancient at the same time. And the banjo picking for the sticky and like all of these elements that come in are really like kind of showcasing these deep roots that are found in folk music around the world. And well done,
Patrick. I mean, thank you. I mean, Patrick, that's all, like as somebody who, Patrick is a banjo player. He's a guitar player and a great banjo player. And like I said, he knows Jamaican music. And so like, what was your, like, I asked you to put banjo on it, but then like once the ball was in your court, like what was your inspiration? Cause I know you listen to a lot of like Mento and Calypso, but as we know, there's not a lot or really any like banjo in Jamaican music once it turned to ska. And then rocksteady and reggae. And it's always been interesting. Patrick and I have talked about that fact as being interesting because, the banjo, most people think of it as this like bluegrass, Appalachian, like, poor white people thing, but it's an African instrument originally. And there's a great documentary, by the way, about this by Bella Fleck, where he goes and what's it called, Patrick?
Throw Down Your Heart.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Where he goes to Africa and places where the banjo is still being used and goes and documents it and jams with these dudes. But yeah, like Patrick, what was in your brain when you were putting the banjo on this stuff, like knowing a lot about the roots of it, but also knowing that like this was going to be something new on a, in terms of like having it on reggae tunes?
Well, I think like whenever you're talking about banjo, it's important to, because there's different kinds of banjos, right? Like what you were talking about, there's 5-string banjo that like you hear on bluegrass, and what 99% of the time, if you hear banjo, it's 5-string, like finger picking, old timey banjo. But there's also 4-string banjos, which is like tenor banjo and plectrum banjo, which is even older. I think the 5th string is an American invention. Like the 5-string banjo is like, Appalachian stuff. But before that, they only had 4 strings, and I think the earliest banjos had like 2 or 3, like original African, just like, like you have a drum head with skin and like some strings over it. I've seen pictures of like ancient banjos that have like 1 or 2 strings.
Wow, you're like the Byzantine Empire.
Seriously, I mean, it's old. Wow. They're older than guitars,
Yeah.
But 4-string banjos are a little rarer. Like they were used in like the jazz era in the 20s, because you take the 5th string off, because the 5th string just gets in the way if you're playing chords with like a pick. So in the 20s, they had 5-string banjos, and they would just take the 5th string off. It would be a 4-string thing where you can play with a pick like a guitar, and it's like it was like a rhythm instrument in the big bands, because banjos are so loud and they project, so they're good if you're trying to be heard over like an orchestra, over like trumpets and trombones and stuff. But they're kind of rare. There's not a lot of recordings in other genres. It was kind of like a jazz thing, but for whatever reason, in the Caribbean, and particularly in Jamaica, there were a lot of really good 4-string banjo players. So if you're a fan of 4-string banjo, which I already was from playing other kinds of music, and reggae and Jamaican music and Caribbean music in general, there's this whole like 4-string banjo Caribbean music genre that is awesome. So it was like kind of like a cool little melting pot of both worlds.
Why do you think that never made its way into like ska and rocksteady if there were so many good players?
I think that's a good question, because I think it does lend itself. But I think what happened in like other kinds of music too is that once the electric guitar came along, I mean, guitar is so awesome and so versatile and just sounds so pleasing to the ear, that banjo went the way of like the tuba. Tubas got replaced by like bass and stuff. Just the way things are, it's hard to go back.
That's a sore subject for me. Please, I still believe that tuba should be incorporated in every genre of music out there. But anyways,
sorry to bring it up.
Is there electric banjo? Now that we're on the subject, I don't want to turn this into a banjo podcast, but
yeah, what are we doing here? Who's the guest?
Exactly. Are there electric?
There is. They don't sound good though. They sound like really bad guitars.
Right. So that's probably as opposed to a guitar sounding better when it not better, but I get that's a good it's a good reason why it got filtered out, I'm sure.
But anyway, so there's all these Mento recordings with cool banjo on it, and when I think it was 2000, it was the end of 2018, Devin, when we played that gig at the Peppermill.
Mm-hmm.
When we had to learn all those songs. We had to do 4 sets a night, and it was just going to be me and Devin. And Devin was like, I want you to play guitar on stuff, but it'd be cool if we could change up the sound every once in a while, and you can play some banjo on it, just kind of like, whatever, I don't know how it's going to sound. And I was like, okay, like, let me try to make that sound good. And he sent me some recordings to practice to. And I was like, all right, I have an idea of what, like, the whole band would be doing if they were here. Like, okay, I know the horns would probably do something like this. The bass would be doing something like this. The piano or the guitar would be just something like doing this type of thing. But it's just me here. So let me try to just kind of do what I can on banjo. And like, I don't know if it's like, I'm sure somebody else might have been able to do a better job, but I think I got as close as I could, and I don't know, I was happy with the way it sounds, so we just kept doing it. And
it came off natural. It sounds very natural. It doesn't sound forced at all. It does, and that's why the idea of creating a new genre is a bold statement, but it is true. It's a whole. It's not just one song. Okay, one song with banjo. It's how many songs? Because when I hear the album, I don't think about that. It's 1, 2 songs. It's for me. It just sounds like a piece of work that's continuous. So, are you playing on every song, Devin? How many songs features the banjo?
There's only banjo on 3 songs.
Okay,
I
3.
believe, but Patrick is on every.
Patrick's on everything.
Song.
Playing
Like, so-
stand up.
Yeah, so the instrumentation of the record is basically me doing the skanks, and doing the vocals and playing the kete drum, and then I do a couple of those like the few songs that have that bubble guitar thing that I was showing you. That's me, and then there's 1 or 2 songs where I'm playing like where I had written the bass line, so I'm kind of playing that on acoustic guitar.
Right.
And then Patrick is doing all the stand-up bass, 98% of the lead guitars, and all of the banjo.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to go check this out because Devin creates, it's not just acoustic reggae, it's just like it surpasses that. And to help give a vibe, do you mind playing us a tune? I want to, maybe give a little sample for the people out there.
Yeah, I wish Patrick was here. He could play with me, but we're...
it'd be really cool as if you guys are at the same pad and you're not telling me, and then he just jumps out of frame.
That was the plan originally.
Broski. Broski.
That's a good idea.
How do we do this, Roger? Do we like solo me?
I'm going to take everyone out and you're going to rock it?
I think you could just hit solo on me. Well, whatever.
Can I?
Yeah, you can.
Wait a minute. We're going to do this right.
No, we're going to get this right, and we're going to make people listen to us get it right. You see on the, like...
Boom!
There it is.
All
right.
I'm going to sit back and watch the show.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to play this song that we were talking about earlier, Merciless. Even though you come from far, coming out of political war, nobody don't have no mercy no more. Where you come from, nobody know you. Where you come from, no one ever see you. Everybody asking, wondering, talking about, said I'm gonna run you out. Feelings in my own, said I'm gonna run you out. No matter how you're feeling now, said I'm gonna turn you about. No sad story, yeah, can't help you out. No matter how you run your route, or what your heartache about. Even though you come from far, running out of economical war, nobody don't have no mercy no more. So fire, fire, fire for the merciless. Yeah. Fire, fire, fire for the pitiless. Yeah, yes. Slum da 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 da, sta da 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 da, da 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 da. Stu oh yeah, so feelings in my home, said I'm gonna run you out. Matter how you're feeling out, said I'm gonna box you about. No water from out of your eye that can help you out. No kind of sad story that never ease you out. I saw your love, although you come from far, crawling out a pure Saigawa. Nobody don't have no mercy no more. I say you soon find out, after you run so far, true you never want fight no racial war. The people don't have no pity, nobody don't hear your story. Nowhere to run for mercy when body and soul get weary. Nobody don't have no mercy no more. So fire, fire, fire for the merciless. Fire, fire, fire for the pitiless. Yeah, yeah, yes. Who never support no roof for the shelterless. Who never support no rights, not justice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fire, fire, fire for the heartless. Yeah. Who no one see poor people progress. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, yes. Do 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 do. Slum stam stam stayada.
Yeah.
You bad boy.
Yeah.
Sounding good. It occurred to me too, like you, I mean, because you're a true performer, you can get in front of an audience, and it's oh.
That happens every time I play too.
You're on the top now. How do we do that? We'll leave it like here. We're switching squares. You're a true performer. You can get in front of an audience just yourself and an acoustic guitar and murder it. But you have to kind of like over the years become. You're like you can scat now, right? Because you got to like kind of do the solos
Dude,
and whatnot.
I have.
You know?
Well, thank you. I have honed that skill this last year. Like I
Right.
feel like I've been trying to sing for like 20 plus years, and it's really been this last year of the pandemic and doing a live stream every Tuesday that I feel like my vocal, like my singing has really like finally like improved to a point where I can notice some improvement.
Gotcha.
And I think it's just been like what you said, like doing it like every Tuesday by myself and having to fill in, like realizing like, you know, it was like a step-by-step thing. It's like, shit, I should be like singing here, like doing something. But like it sounds crappy. So let me like actually practice that. And it was just like building on that kind of thing, you know?
Right.
Because yeah, you got to fill it in when you're skank. No one wants to hear like it's just a skank by itself, right? You got to like try to fill it in. And then it's hard when I play with a band. I got to remind myself to stop doing all that stuff, right? Because I'll like hit the, I play acoustic. I'll like, I always do that, like that thing where I like am simulating the one drop, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that will come across when I'm in a recording session, and I have to like remind myself like, there's a drummer here. Like don't like just play skanks. So it's always like retraining. But I wish Patrick was here to play that song with me because he has some like amazing like Justin Hines style guitar stuff he's doing on there. If you listen to, there's a Justin Hines tune called Savor Bread, like classic Rocksteady tune, and like I think Patrick was telling when we were talking about what to do on that song, Patrick was like, maybe I'll do something like on Savor Bread, like that kind of guitar style, and it worked really well.
Yeah, I always liked that song. I wonder who's playing guitar on that track.
It's got to be Lynn Tate.
You think so?
You don't think so? You think it sounds more
I
like
don't
Ernest
know.
Franklin or somebody?
Something like that. It sounds like some like super jazzy guy. I don't know. I really
could
like
be.
whoever
You might be
that
right.
is. I wonder if there's a way to find out.
Man, that song, again, I know we already talked about the lyrics, but really following the tradition of reggae, so nice on the ears and so cutting on the content, the lyrical content.
Thanks, man.
One thing that I really love about this record is that I feel every song starts, you don't know that it's going to be a reggae, ska, rocksteady feel. They really evoke kind of, as I said, classic folk music or like what I call evening music, like, music that you want to put on for a romantic, quiet night or a night, around the fire. Yeah, it starts things out light, but then it gets so dancey. There's so much dance in this record. And it's
Cool.
so phenomenal to hear you pull that off. All three of you guys, because I know Roger's, behind the production here, and we're not really talking about that much. But there's so much dance involved, and the one tune that it really shines through on is, the call to specifically reggae and DJs is The Answer, and man, that version is grooving so hard on this, and the kete drum, which I also feel I want to know more about the story of your experience learning how to play in that style, because it's completely on point throughout the record, and Wheel and Shoulder, the title track, which I'm not sure where it exists on the actual record, but that really features the kete drum. It's the last song, yeah.
It's the last
and
down here.
yeah, it's that's a special drum. It's a special drum in reggae music, Nayabingy style. And where did you get your chops on that? Was that personal? Did somebody show you? Do you drum with people?
No, I mean, no one ever really showed me. I don't think. Again, it's just like, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on this episode and others. It's just like if you listen to a music all the time, you know, it's like that's how you learn to play that musical style. And you know, I listen to so much reggae, and I just always noticed that as being a crucial component of it is the kete drum. Whether it's like on like, you know, I'll pull up this record right here, like, where is it? Oh, come on.
You're sampling from your brain. You're like,
here,
you know,
this album right here, Ross Michael and the Sons of Negus, Nayabingy.
for sure.
This record is the only record of its kind. Like, there's only one record that sounds like this, and it's this. And I recommend everyone. It's not on Spotify, but it's on YouTube. You can find it, or you can go look up like some of the tunes, which are like, you know, Keep Cool Babylon. And there's a song on here called Run Come Throw Away Your Stony Heart, and that song more than any other was an influence for this record, because it's one of the only songs I know of where it's like Nayabingy, just straight up Nayabingy the whole time, but there's a skank guitar happening, an acoustic skank guitar, and there's a bass and like a flute or something. But so like from listening to that album, which I actually heard like really early on in listening to reggae, where it's just straight up Nayabingy, to then like listening to rockers and like early, you know, early Roots Radix, where you hear Scully, the great percussionist Scully, who incidentally was also the vocalist Zoot Sims in the Rocksteady era, same guy. But his little patterns, he does this pattern a lot. And I have this drum here. This is not the drum I used, but it's actually my, I put drinks on this during the show. But
Nice.
like he does this pattern where it's like, so if it's like, if the count is 1, 2, 3, 4, it's, and that's like his, like that little like, and this drum is tuned really low. It should be like a higher pitch than that. But that, like, you hear that little pattern you hear all over reggae, and like that always really like stood out to me. And so I just would try to play it. And I feel like I've always wanted to be a drummer. Like if I had just all the time in the world to do music every day, like that would be one of my main goals, is to like have a drum set and practice every day and like become a good reggae drummer, because that's just like, that is the thing driving the reggae train. You know what I mean? I feel like in my head, I know what I want the drums to do, but I don't have like the mechanical chops to make it happen. But I was able to get a little farther, like on just hand drum, you know, but I never had a real good one. There's a couple Expanders tunes, like on our first album, there's a song called Follow It, and I'm playing the kete drum on that, but it's just like a Guitar Center djembe or something. And same thing on, the 2 cover albums that we did, the Old Time Something records. There's a couple songs throughout there that you'll hear the hand drum, and that's me too. But I never had like a proper kete. And then, you know, the homie Zion Love Sound, who's here in Southern California, he makes just these amazing kete drums. Anybody who's interested, like, link me and I'll link you with him. Like, they're just, dude, you like, they're so legit. Like, they sound great. And
There's
so
one
for this,
right
yeah, Roger's got one back there. If you see like that red, gold, and green drum back there, that Micah actually custom made it for you, right? Like it's supposed to be after he modeled it after. If anyone looks up the classic Crystallites record, you'll see
Undertaker is the record.
Undertaker, right? And is that Bongo Herman on the front?
Yeah.
He's got that kete like with that coloring. So you got that custom colored.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so I was like, okay, for this record I have to like do it right and get a good drum. So
and that's important too, because like you mentioned Guitar Center, djembe, like, you know, people, the beach drum circle on the beach, and everyone's just going wild. And for people that really appreciate no reggae, there's a fine line. It's like on and off switch. Like no. Just don't even have the drum if it's not going to be right.
It's a sound, you know. It really is a sound. The kete drum is a specific instrument that, you know, doesn't get a lot of worldwide notoriety because it really only exists in Nayabingy music, and a lot of people don't know what that is, or if they do, they look down on it as like, okay, it's drum boom, like, you know, big deal, guys. But it's, you know, it's a whole thing, you know. Ross Michael and Count Ossie and Scully, like these people are, and Bongo Herman, right? These people are masters of it, and it's got a sound like just nothing else sounds like that kete drum. And I'm still learning how to, like, you know, get my chops up, like the vocabulary of like the fills and stuff, and like because there really is like you nailed it, Roger, like the drum circle thing. It's like that's what you don't want to do on it, you know. It's like, or that's at least what I don't want to do on it, and so. You know, certain times where I'm like, okay, like just let yourself go. But then like when I let myself go, it's like it starts to get real drum circly. You know, I'm like, okay, let me wheel that back in a little bit. You know?
James brought up the answer, and I want to talk about that a little bit because that song is really cool. I think that for people that don't know, it kind of follows the format of many Jamaican songs, right? Where like someone's telling a story. I mean, we played. Ringo, Johnny Ringo, and it's kind of a little different because you're kind of talking about yourself and your journey. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then you mentioned
it's kind of an autobiographical, tongue-in-cheek.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, tongue-in-cheek. And it's cool because you throw up Ben, right? You talked about Ben earlier, kind of being one of the main guys to introduce you, in your story of reggae music. So talk about that song. Like, who were your Like, who were you who were you formatting it after? Like, which Jamaican artist, or was it just like a group of, was it?
Right. Well, that song came about years ago. It's probably like, of all the songs on this record, maybe the one that was like written first. And I say like in quotes because that was like, I was doing this thing where I wanted to just like write, I wanted to have like some lyrics to sing over classic rhythms. Like, should I ever get put in that situation, if I'm at like Dub Club or like whatever, and like, the answer rhythm comes on, I'd like to have like, I'm not a great freestyler, so I'd like to have like something to sing over it. And so I started like writing songs to like various rhythms, and I think that was the first one I did. And so, if anyone looks up, like, you can look up Dub Specialist, the answer. And so for people who don't know, like, Jamaican music has a lot of rhythms that are just used over and over. And by rhythm, what you mean is like what the backing band is doing, the chord changes, and specifically like the bass line, right? And the answer rhythm is just like a 2-chord thing, and it's recognizable by the bass line, which is
classic.
right. And so that's the answer rhythm. And so I just took the it started in the Ska, Rocksteady era, I think. The original answer, I forget. All this stuff has its roots in Studio One, and I can't remember exactly what the first like answer rhythm is. But the classic one for me is the reggae one with the horns, the fiend in it, where they do that 7. They're holding the 7 chord, and it's Dub Specialist is like the dub version of it, and like the classic vocal versions over it are like Lone Ranger's the answer. And I think Lone Ranger was probably like the DJ style I was going for on that. You know what I mean? So it's like that. It's a total like Sing J DJ style on that. And so I just like queued up the rhythm and wrote a song to it. And this was long ago, and just always had it and like never knew what to do with it. And Patrick mentioned that gig that him and I did a couple of years ago at in Reno, where him and I were doing 4 sets a night of just me and him, like acoustic reggae and ska. And so I was just scrambling for like any like material, and I was like, all right, well, we'll play that. And this happens so much in music, right? Like when you're in a band, the thing that you think is going to be like the silly throwaway ends up being like the one, you know what I mean? And that was obviously every night we played it was like good energy, So I was like, all right, cool. Like, this is not an intuitive choice to put on an acoustic record, but like I'm going to do it just because it's like it works here when we're playing it live, and we'll figure out how to make it sound like the answer, and I feel like we did a good job. And
was the order, because the rhythm is called the answer rhythm, that's already established, and then you have the theme, this is the answer to the question when they ask me where me get it from. So it's kind of like, okay, that the answer was already named, it's a rhythm. Did you sit back and go, okay, I'm gonna parlay that into telling a story?
For sure, because like I said, like I wasn't, and I think sometimes these are the way the best songs get written, is that I wasn't taking myself super seriously on that. I was just like I said, I want some lyrics to just have in my back pocket. If the answer rhythm ever comes on, I can get up and like sing this tune. So it wasn't like, so I was like, yeah, let's play off the thing of the answer. And I immediately just started thinking of like, there's so many Jamaican DJ tunes, whether it's Lone Ranger or like Toyan or anybody who's kind of bigging themselves up and like telling their own story, And so that's kind of what I was like, this is the answer to the question of like, because I get this a lot, and like any white dude who's like playing reggae is gonna get this. People going like really, you, like what, like how did you start doing this? You know what I mean? So that was like the story of the song. It's like this is the answer to the question when they ask me like where I got this from. And yeah, like you're right. It was like You know, I said I changed the ages a little bit to make it rhyme. You know, it was more like
Right.
11 or 12. It was more like 12 or 13. You know, but I said like
you should
as
do a
legal-
music video.
I should.
Because
Right.
we've all seen like Michael Jackson's Bad, like that video. You know how like at the beginning those dudes are like, "You ain't bad, you ain't
Right,
bad,"
right,
and he's
right,
all,
right.
he's all, "Well, you better
Yeah.
hold. I'm gonna put some
Speaking of
buckles
music
on."
video, like Ben giving me the because it says as a little youth at the age of 10, I had a little.
No. I'm
we have a
picturing the
little
video
version
going like
with him
this.
called Big Ben.
I'm picturing you get some slack from some like real cats, like like what you just mentioned, because everyone's judging the book by its cover.
Right.
But then like
Which
you
this
jump
is
on
an
stage
easy
and you
cover
murder it.
to judge about.
You know what I mean? I can see the video going like that, and you just murder it, and you're like everyone there is just like, dude, this fool's on fire. Yeah, I'm gonna make that happen.
Some
Let's do it.
torches.
Yeah, I need some videos.
Yeah, man, it's a
Dang.
solid nod on the record too, just because it says the album is titled Wheel and Shoulder, Reggae, Rocksteady, and Ska Volume 1. Am I getting that in the right order?
Acoustic reggae, rocksteady, and ska
Acoustic.
volume 1. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
crucial word in there, acoustic, because that is still, again, the phenomenal thing that's happening in this record is that you are moving and grooving to these styles, and it is all acoustic. There's no drum set.
All acoustic.
And I
100%
think that-
acoustic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is that's a it really ties the room together. Having a rhythm that you can connect it all back to. Yes, this is where I come from, and this rhythm. And another thing that I love about the recording is that it is such a big bass line. Even before I knew about rhythms, I knew that bass line, and it's kind of one of the bass lines that you hear that you say, hey, haven't I heard this in another song?
I think that I read that the answer is the most versioned rhythm. Like,
Yeah,
like you were thinking maybe it'd be Real Rock or like Heavenless or one of those, but I think it actually is the answer.
It's definitely one of the top. And, but the bass line in this, it's there, but it's not, it's kind of understated, because it's on, is it on the upright or is it being played on the guitar?
Oh, it's upright. And
Upright,
that's,
yeah.
And that's the thing, I'm glad you brought that up because, like,
I love it.
I mentioned how Patrick, like, the first stuff I heard was, like, the ska tune he did, right? But then my immediate thought was, like, upright bass in reggae doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist for a reason, you know what I mean? It's got, like, this resonance that you don't necessarily want. You want the more controlled features of an electric bass, like when you're talking about, like, playing a repeating bass line, So I was dubious about how it was going to sound on a tune like The Answer, how that doom 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 doo 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 was going to come across on an upright bass. And I should have trusted my what I keep coming back to all along, which is that, like, Patrick knows Jamaican music. So he's, with another bass player who plays upright music, you might have had to, like, try to explain that to them.
Exactly.
But Patrick already, like, knew that on an intuitive level, like, that is an issue, and, like, my job here is to, like, not only, like, execute this line, but try to control some of the possibly unwanted aspects of, like, the upright bass, So that's another reason why I was so stoked when I heard what Patrick was doing on this record, because I'm like, man, like, I've never heard, like, upright bass sound like that on reggae tunes before.
It was tough. It was tough to get that one, like, articulated right, because you're right, like the upright bass lends itself more to, like, walking bass lines and, like, ska. It was definitely easier on that. But I think
Psychobilly.
what's the record? Psychobilly play, yeah. But I forget the record. It's one of those, I don't know if it's Ross Michael. I think it's called Groundation. That record. You know what I'm talking about?
The Mystic Rebel. Oh, no.
Oh, is that what it is?
Wait, are you talking about Dadawa? That one?
Maybe. It's the one that has,
Foundation
like,
is Count Ossie and the Mystic Revelation, I think.
okay, that's
But
who it is.
What
That's
song
what I'm
are you
thinking
thinking,
of.
though? Because I could tell you if you'd say the song.
No, I mean that whole album, that Count Ossie record, there's upright bass on it. And it's not like, it's not reggae per se. I mean, it is, but it's like, it's bingy, and there's upright bass on the whole thing, and I always thought it sounded so cool. I was like, if you can make this work on, like, these slower tempos that isn't, like, just a normal walking bass line, it's like a repeating bass line, then, like, I can make it work on the Answer. It just took a while,
I mean, I think you did, and I have to, like, ask Roger, because, like I said, Roger engineered the record, mixed the record. Did you, like, as somebody who's well versed in, like, mixing reggae, did you find that a challenge to, like, mix in the upright bass specifically on this record?
No, most definitely, yes, for sure. I think anybody would, like, even professional studios have a hard time recording and mixing certain instruments because they're not, used so often. Like, so for example, even if you throw in like a Hammond organ with Leslie or an upright bass, they're not the most common things that people are using in every session, let alone my history with mixing and recording things. So, mixing it was easy because of the elements used, right? If it was something that was a little more complex with more elements, then when you mix a song, you want to give everything its own space. You want it to help. You have all these ingredients cooking a dish. So there was a small challenge, to see. You didn't want it to conflict on the EQ spectrum. Like with, for example, the acoustic guitar has a lot of that, mid-rangey stuff too. And the upright bass has a very different frequency. I don't want to get all geeky, but it has a different frequency spectrum than an electric bass. Electric bass has the potential to have more, like it can sit in a certain, you can tame it. Upright, I'm noticing just by working, this is my first time working with an upright bass, is that it's a little more of a monster. You want to have the presence, you want it to be real full, So, yeah, Patrick, and I'm telling you, the job gets real easy when the performance is just amazing, and the way it's recorded. Really, it really came all together really easy. I mean, so great job, Patrick.
Nice.
I don't know
Thanks,
I don't know what you're doing here, but
Yeah, since you're here.
it seems like everything. No, Patrick is the definitely an MVP because, it may seem like we're just almost every question, Devin, you're like, well, Patrick, Patrick, but it's so true. I've known Patrick a while enough too, and you're definitely right about trusting someone who has the reggae chops. And
Right.
You too. Your dad must be proud for both of you. Both of his sons are proficient in Jamaican music.
My dog. Thanks for saying that, Roger. But I know Devin was hyping you up for a long time before I think Devin even started recording. He was, I want to do this acoustic record, and like I want to record it with Roger because I know he knows what he's doing, and like all the stuff you put out always sounds so good. So he was like really stoked to record this with you. I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
And
it was
does sound
definitely,
good.
it was cool, man. It's a cool learning experience for both of us because, like I said, there's no other genre like this. And so to grab all these elements, and I'm a big fan of what Devin does and has been doing ever since I, first was introduced to the Expanders. And
For sure.
And Roger, of course, plays keys on like most of the Expanders stuff. I mean,
That's
the first album, I'd say you're on like more than half the tunes. You're on quite a few of Hustling Culture as well. And you mixed the first Old Time Something, Come Back Again Expanders record is mixed by
That's right, I
Roger.
forgot.
So he was
Yeah.
there. He was there for all
Oh
of
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Game
Man,
recognized games.
the keys on Hustling Culture specifically, man, you murdered it on that record. It sounds so good.
Oh, thank you.
I
Everything.
agree.
I was in the zone at that moment in my life. I don't know, I was doing Pilates and pottery. It's crazy.
He was.
Pottery.
I just want to say I don't have the history that you guys have together and the deep roots that you have. I mean, with you two as brothers, family, growing up, playing music together, teaching each other music, and then the history that you have with Roger. I mean, time working with people and chemistry really can do something, and I think it shines through. And I've been listening to your music for a long time, Devin, and I feel like this is really a constantly developing style, and it's shining through at its best level on this record. And I'm really excited that it's titled Volume 1. Is there definitely going to be a Volume 2?
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I feel the same about you. We could, everyone watching, if you haven't seen one of our first episodes, we had James from Giant Panda on as one of our first guests. So, you can go get your Giant Panda fix there. Yes, there's a Volume 2, and Roger knows this. Like when we first started trying to record this record, it was a 2-year process. But the first year was really just like it turned out to be all throwaway, and it was just we didn't know this going into it. I feel like every musician.
Love to hear that stuff too.
I mean, it's this,
Sorry.
it's like it's just, you know how it is when you start a project. You think, oh, this is gonna be easy, and then like it just turns into like, oh man, like we're kind of a little in over our head, And it was a lot of trial and error. And the idea at first was like, I've got all these songs. I've got like 2 albums worth of songs. Let me just get them down. We'll record them and like put them out and like. But then I started thinking like, it's gonna be easier if I split them up into 2 albums worth of music. It'll just to like try to get one project done and also just to like for the first time in my life be actually like business smart about something, you know, and like have like another album like in my back pocket of stuff. So it's like the songs when the set. So yes, the answer to your question, there is a volume 2. The songs are written. I've already been to Roger's house and started recording, you know, the foundations of it. So the ball is rolling. The goal is to have it be like this, you know, like I'm not saying that I'm gonna like make albums like this that sound like this for the rest of my life, but like these 2 records are like they're supposed to, you know, they're sister albums, and you know, being that Patrick is on it anyway, and I think that yeah, I think like the call was made early on. Let's split these up, and so the tunes, some of the tunes like that are on this album, like I think When the Evening Comes was the last of all these songs, of all like the 2 albums with the songs that I wrote. So it's like the chronology is all out of order. You know what I mean? There are tunes on the second that are going to be on the second album that were definitely written before some of these ones that are on this first record. Yeah, but that's why I wouldn't be so bold as to title something Volume 1 if I didn't have like a Volume 2 ready to go. I'm not like that's like a total. What's his name? That's a total. Why am I blanking? Who's the Pat Riley? That's like a total Pat Riley move. You know, it's like I'm guaranteeing we're gonna win it next year too, like that kind of thing. I'm not that bold.
Oh man, well it's gonna be a hell of a follow up. You know, this is solid tune for tune, back to back. You know, side A, side B, and it's gonna be nice on vinyl. I'm really excited to get the vinyl pressing of this.
Yeah, here it is. I have them.
You have like a
here.
true professional. You already have the vinyl,
and you know, I'm sure that anybody who's a reggae head, one's in the mail to you already. But Amen. I'm sure that anybody who's a real like reggae head, and you know, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm showing the vinyl right now. You can't see it, but anybody watching, and if you're a real reggae head, you will recognize like immediately where this album is from. It's an homage to the classic Alton Ellis, Mr. Soul of Jamaica record, and you know, Roger was involved in every step of this record, including you know the designing of the record. Roger is an amazing graphics dude, and you know, art can really hold up a project. I have been involved in projects that just got really held up because we couldn't decide on art. So, you know, I was trying to be on top of that. And so I knew Roger's great at graphics, and Roger, you know, he's a great dude to work with because he's very straightforward and he will tell you what he needs. And he told me like, look, like, give me a concept, like, let me know like what I'm supposed to be doing, and then we'll rock it, you know? And so we experimented with some different, I looked through my record collection, and there's lots of records, you know, that have the classic like scientist, like art thing that's on, like, you know, you can see the first Expanders record that Jay Bonner did for us. We went for that style, right? Which is bright colors, like animation, cartoonish thing. But then there's also so many records that don't rely on that style of art. They rely on graphics, you know, from something very simple to, you know, it's more elaborate, but it's all, you know, geometric shapes and photos and stuff like that. And so we just figured like that, those are the tools that we have in our toolbox for this specific project. So let's try to go that route. And so we saw that Alton Ellis cover, and it was like, let's do that, you know. And on Alton's album, he's got his face in these pictures. And so we decided like, what's cool here is that this top picture of all the instruments, this is a picture that I took. And these are all the instruments that were on the record. So like There's guitars, banjo, like that's the kete that was used. You can kind of see the banjo over there, the string bass back here. I think up here is the main guitar that was used. The main guitar that I used for like all the skank stuff on this record was a guitar that was built for me by my grandfather.
Wow.
My dad's dad, who was an amazing woodworker. That's like what his profession was, an upholsterer. Him and his dad were in business together. But when he retired, he started carving like awesome little wooden animals and stuff. And he had things in museums, and he had a real cool sense of humor that he would put into his art. And then he started making like guitars for the family. And he made my dad and his plan was to make one for everybody, and he was going to start with his sons and then make one for the grandchildren. And he passed before he was able to make me my guitar, but he made my dad a guitar, and that's the guitar that I used for all the skank stuff on here. And not by you know, I didn't say to myself going into it like, oh, I'm going to use Grandpa's guitar. Roger will remember this. I brought like every guitar I had, nylon strings, steel strings, everything, and just tried them all. And that was the one that was just, the mic was just picking up that one the best. We were getting the best tone out of that one. So that's what we went with. And so that's that picture. And then the other picture this is Roger's studio. So it's just, some of his equipment. And then
Wow.
on the back here on the vinyl, I'd always wanted to do this, is
Oh,
like to
sweet.
put all the lyrics.
Amazing.
So, we really tried to make it something like, that's one of the great things about vinyl, as opposed to like, obviously as opposed to like MP3s and stuff, but even CDs, it's like, there's just this big thing you can hold in your hand. And when you put it on, it's like this little experience where you just like sit back and, can read the lyrics and read whatever little, like, I've got like a little thank you section and this record is inspired by section and who played on it. And just really tried to like, just as myself as a vinyl nerd, just wanted to like check all those boxes of what I look for in a record.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's important too. Like you're at well, not that there's any more record shops really, but having that wow factor, something that pops at you, and I think the cover does a really good job. Because sometimes you can have, like you mentioned, a bunch of colors and bright colors, but if you have if everything's at 10, then it's just bland. It's where you have this kind of just really like 3-color, purple, yellow, black and white. Now you give opportunity for some things to pop, and that's
think so.
every single time you show me that. Every single time I look, I've worked on the art, so every single time I look at it, it doesn't get boring. It pops. And Lakers colors. There you
Lakers
go.
colors. Yeah, that was not an accident. Purple and gold. And also like that was the reason what you just mentioned is like was kind of the reason behind me maybe putting in the overkill, like, long ass album title of like Wheel and Shoulder Acoustic Reggae or ROCKSTEADY SKA Volume 1 is like, at the risk of being overkill with it, like I wanted people who might just come across it to know what this record is. I wanted them to like know that this is an acoustic reggae ROCKSTEADY and ska record.
Right.
So that's why I decided to like put all that in, and not be
Yep.
concise with it.
It's important for sure.
Choosing an album title is always, it either comes naturally or you really have to think hard about it. Wheel and Shoulder is a pretty interesting, an interesting title, and I was just curious as to how that came to be. Talk about maybe the concept of what Wheel and Shoulder is,
Right.
where that comes from.
I'm a fan of like naming your album after a song on the album. I just have always liked that. And so, yeah, there's a tune on this record called Wheel and Shoulder. And it comes from those words, wheel and shoulder, come from the expression, put your shoulder to the wheel, make it like do hard work. Right. And the song Wheel and Shoulder is kind of like flipping that expression on its head in terms of its normal usage. It's normal. Like, I feel like in capitalism, anything that talks about like doing some real hard work is like a positive thing that we praise, and this is more coming from the angle of like, as we are now in and progress further deep into like late stage capitalism, and the unfortunate effects on the world that has, where people are just like working all the time with nothing to show for it. It's like putting your shoulder to the wheel is like all that there is. And that's just all that people do all the time for survival. And so I wanted to like change that expression a little bit because I was flipping the meaning a little bit. So instead of saying like shoulder to the wheel, I was saying wheel and shoulder. And the hook of that song is like, it's only wheel and shoulder now. And it's a really bleak song. It's like not a feel good. It's not a feel good song, that tune, it's like, it's a depressing one. And it just like kind of paints this picture. And When the Evening Come is another song on this album that's like that. Just, I think as many people do, I think a lot about, I get a lot of anxiety about, where the earth is now and is heading in terms of, environmentalism, in terms of, global warming and the rich having everything and the poor having nothing, and all those things, how they interact. And, it's hard not to feel very pessimistic about that state of affairs, And so this song is just me venting, I hope it's not a prophetic song. It's not me like trying to wish that upon the world, even though a lot of that is already here. But it's just me venting those feelings of like, the lyrics say like, who say that they see, who say they know how the late stage runnings go. The ones who sit up high get low. And then I say, remember when cool water winds blow, it still carried hope for tomorrow. The way you reap, you did so. Remember nothing no go so, which is the Jamaican term, right? Like, that's not the way it is anymore. Remember nothing no go so now. It's only wheel and shoulder. So it's like a really depressing, like bleak, it's like, no, there's no hope. Like, we're just working all the time for nothing, and that's just kind of like what things have boiled down to. And again, you know, it's like I know, and especially in this American reggae scene, like positivity is like such a championed value of like, oh, we got to be positive. And I just think, I know it's a cliche term now, but like I think toxic positivity is a real thing. And sometimes if you're always being positive, you can really run the risk of overlooking the actual issues that are happening. Like, sorry guys, we have to talk about this. We have to get negative for a second, or else we're never gonna, you know, resolve any of the global issues that people are facing, you know. And so if you listen to Jamaican music, it's like, you know, Bob Marley, you know, of course he had like, you know, tunes like Rastaman Vibration Positive, but then he had tunes like Talking Blues where he says, you know, we feel like bombing a church because we know that the preacher is lying. You know, he had Cold Ground Was My Bed Last Night, and he had like, you know, it seems like sudden destruction's the only, total destruction's the only solution. Ain't no use, nobody can stop them now. Like, these themes exist in Jamaican music because it's a way to give vent to the real feelings that we have. And anybody who doesn't have like anxiety over like the way the world is and the way it's heading, you know, I'd say you're either not paying attention or you're just like lying to yourself, you know. And so like I definitely don't try to get steeped in that kind of songwriting like for everything, because I do think that there's something to be said for music as escapism and you know, to just party to as well. But yeah, that's a tune where I really like kind of just let myself delve and go deep into the darkness on that one.
That's one of my favorite tunes on the record.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hit me hard during the stream when you were, you know, because you know, if you don't know, now you know. Man-Like-Devin does a stream every Tuesday. I don't know if you've been doing it recently. I've been out of the country, so my hours are all messed up. But you know, during the quarantine, during the, you know, deep parts of the pandemic, that was my concert and that was my community that I was so stoked to check out every week. And Wheel and Shoulder, you know, first time I heard that, it's, you know, such a deep rhythm, and it's, I think, the longest track on the album, and you put it at the end. So if you don't want to get all down in the dark, sure, you can turn it off. But that's like a pretty good metaphor for like where we're at. It's like, yeah, you don't want to look, you don't want to listen to, you know, the real situation, what's going on. So I really, you know, a lot of respect, and I'm really grateful to you for putting these messages out there in such a poetic but prophetic way. In the same, you know, just like the music that we've been listening to and that has inspired us. You know, it's a very proper, it's a proper way to do it. And I love that you titled the album that, and it brings attention to these themes, you know. Really,
Thanks, man.
really incredible.
That means a lot to me. I appreciate that. I really do.
Are you able to play it for us? Is that something that you can throw down?
Sure, I could play that one.
Yeah.
Since we're getting dark, let's do it.
Just for getting dark. Might as well
Try to
get
fuck up
darker.
my Wednesday, Roger.
Now.
Okay, here we go. Let's see.
Pick up the darkness.
And what's cool about this record, this song on the record too, is that it's the most minimal on the record. There's no lead guitar on it, so like it's just it's, you know, the upright bass, the kete, the skank, and then I'm doing the like bubble too, and that's it. We decided not to put any like lead instruments and just really let the rhythm speak for itself. And by the time people hear this podcast, I'll have all the singles will be out, and this is Wheel and Shoulder is actually the third single that's releasing, and that was kind of on purpose. It's not like an obvious choice for a single, I think, because it's very long and it's dark. It's like repetitive, but you know, for all the reasons, I think this song was just really important to me on the record. So I just said, you know what, let's have this be a single from it anyway. So yeah, this is Wheel and Shoulder.
Yeah, who said that they see? Who said they know how the late stage runnings are go? Men who sit up high get low. Who said that they see and know? Remember when cool water winds blow? Still carry hope for tomorrow. The way you reap, you did so. Remember nothing now goes on now. It's only wheel and shoulder. It's only wheel and shoulder now. It's
soldier, and there is no getting over now. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All of every nation crying, I'm saying all night, boy. Do you hear heartbreaking sorrow? No kind of hope for tomorrow now. It's only wheel and shoulder. It's only wheel and shoulder now. It's hungry youth and soldier, and only time getting older now. Whoa, 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 recall and pondering some ways to come over. When out you wandering ways moving over, and a lot of suffering poor people drop over, then more struggling poor people tip over, then just threw them shoulder to the wheel every night again. Not threw them shoulder to the wheel, man, lose sight again. All kind of love run away from the people then. Mercy gone away from the people then. Man to put some zeros together in a line. Now them hungry belly blind. All of the youths are turned soldier, and there is no getting over now. Still man have to answer again. Who say that they see? Who say they know? How the late stage runnings are go. Men who sit up high get low. When you moving slick, move slow. Remember when cool water winds blow, carrying a hope for tomorrow. The way you reap, you did so. Remember nothing now goes on now. Remember nothing now goes on now. Remember nothing never goes on now. Remember nothing never goes on now. Remember nothing never goes on now. It's only wheel and shoulder now. It's only wheel and shoulder now. It's only wheel and shoulder. It's only time getting older. His angry youth and soldier. It's only wheel and shoulder. It's only wheel and shoulder. All I see is hungry youth and soldier, and there is no getting over her.
I like it. I like how the progression moves. I can't pinpoint. I don't know if it's on purpose or accident or whatever, but the actual progression that you have lends itself for sure to, even though you mentioned it's like the longest song on the album and it may have this, darker meaning, and it's at the end of the album, and there's no elements that it's just a groove. I don't know. And
I have to say I was like really influenced, and anybody who's like a fan of Midnight like can hear it on that tune. Midnight is my favorite. Von Benjamin is my favorite artist, like of all time. Just his lyrics and his flow and the way the band is and everything. But definitely, like, you can't listen to a group that much as I listen to Midnight, like without it creeping in, to like the stuff you're doing. And so like definitely like the repetitive, like slow 3 chords the whole time that you're kind of talking about, like the progression.
Right.
Because Midnight, and they're not everybody likes Midnight. They don't do it for everybody, but if they do it for you, it's kind of almost like what Burning Spear does for you. It's like you get in this like meditative like zone with it, and it's not about taking you new places with different chord changes all the time. It's the opposite, right? It's about like a mantra. It's about like chanting the same thing over and over musically, right? Because Von Benjamin, the flip side of that is super wordy, 1,000 words per song, stuff like that. But like the music is just like you're just letting yourself get into a meditative like zone with it, and so that was heavily influenced by Midnight, that tune.
I hear that in that song very much, and I'm also a huge fan of Midnight, but I love how that groove moves like a wheel. It reminds me of like a wheel, like a churning, and you can hear like almost the St. Croix like bubble style like happening even though it's not being played.
Cool.
It's like implied in that kind of groove. So
awesome. That's
yeah,
like that's a huge compliment.
That's
a huge compliment because that's the goal for sure. And you're talking about like the implied things. I really try to like when it's just me playing, I really do try to somehow convey that. And so like the fact that you bring that up like is really cool to me to hear because I always talk about, and St. Croix does have like the bubble in like St. Croix reggae and like Midnight and stuff. It really is a specific thing, that's obviously it's so similar to Jamaican bubble, but like the heaviness of that left hand is like really a thing that happens on the organ in that kind of music. And to me, I've talked about this a lot. It's like the elements of reggae, right, are like obviously the bass, which is melodic, but rhythmically often holding down the on beats, the down beats, right, and then the skank on the off beats. And a lot of people talk about those two things, but to me, just as crucial is that left hand bubble, right? And those are like the three elements that you really need to like make a one drop song, right? So instead of just like without the bubble, you're just getting like the chink 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 chink, right? But with the bubble, that's where the groove is. Chink chink chink, and that's what's making you groove, like those are the things. So to me, it's hard to like even listen to like a one drop without a bubble in it. And there are different kinds, right? It doesn't have to always be doing that. There's a different like you hear lots of reggae songs where they're filling it out with something else. But yeah, that those three elements to me are so crucial. And like I always try to like, even if no one's around playing it, I try to do what I can to like have the rhythm convey that like that's supposed to be here, and I hope you're hearing it like in your brain as you listen to it.
Reggae is so much about that, and even the concept of the one drop is about the space, and what's not being played just as much as what is being played. And I love that about this acoustic record. I feel like those implied things, the space is happening all over this, which is still making it so reggae, so rocksteady, so ska. Each of those individual movements, that happened with the period that, what ultimately became known as reggae. I really feel your record throughout, tune to tune, in the heart of it, the meat of it does that. And I was gonna comment that the artwork also implies that, so much about that artwork is about the space. Show the record again. Yeah. It's like the way that Roger says that it can make it pop. That to me is the visual element of reggae. That's reggae implied visually. It's what's not there that makes the important stuff stand out. And I love that about this whole record. I love it when something ties together so nicely and kind of hits those points at so many levels. I think this record really does that, and people are going to be really blessed to receive it and be making it a part of their life, a part of their family's life. It's and the fact that, again, just to tie it all together, that it comes from a family of musicians, that the grandfather made guitars that are on the album, not planned, but because that's what sounded right. I mean, this is really the heart of why music is like a modern kind of magic. I mean, it's an ancient kind of magic, but it's always magical. No matter how far we get into technology, it's this kind of synthesis and the representation that music gives to the non-physical, that moves us so much and connects us. Like, that's how we know each other. That's how this, why we do what we do and how our lives move what they knew. So I try to not ever lose sight of that. And I'm just so proud of you for, bringing all those things together. And I'm grateful that I'm living in a time that I'm going to be able to enjoy it, so make it a part of my life. So thank you so much for making this record.
Thanks, man.
Really incredible, man.
that means a lot. And I really, coming from you, it's like, I've always been a huge fan of your stuff and Giant Panda from the time. I mean, I was listening to you guys from forever, and then the Expanders got to do that tour with you guys and Simkin Project in 2014. Right. That was just one of my favorite tours. We just had Pachi Man on the show.
Oh my God.
I guess by the time people heard this, the Pachi Man episode will already be out. And we spent like a good deal of time talking about that tour where Pachi was playing keys with the Expanders.
So great.
And specifically the day, his birthday, where we ruined his birthday. I ruined his birthday by ordering him the wrong food from. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast that exists. You guys can hear it. But yeah, man, I appreciate that. That really means a lot to me. And everybody like I had the honor of like being the feature of an article that James wrote for rootfire.net that previewed the first single from this record, People's Prayer. And I gotta say, like, that's one of the like most humbling, like nicest things like anybody's ever said about me. That article.
Great article. Yeah.
I would encourage people to
from the heart, bro.
check it out, because who doesn't want people to read something so nice that's written about you?
I mean, truth be told, man,
of
course. I mean, well, yeah, it was natural. It's natural because, like, it's always hard to hear these things. I mean, it's lovely to hear great things about yourself, but it's also hard to really grasp what it really means to people. I know that when you say that you enjoy my music or whatever, I can't really grasp what that means. And I know right back at you, I don't think you have any idea, how big your music in my life is, regardless of if I know you or don't know you. Music is bigger than the person that makes it. That's ultimately what you want it to be. I think we all want that to leave a legacy, for the people that don't know us, for the work that we can't do to help people get by, get through the day, share an important moment. And one thing that I wanted to just comment on in your music is that, you talked right in the beginning of the interview about how music is so subjective, but we all go through so many of the same things, and that's part of writing music subjectively. When you're really honest about things, there's going to be a lot of people out there that relate. And one thing that your music reflects so well is these themes of like loneliness, but also these themes of love. And I feel like a lot of times they will exist in the same song lyrically, but also musically. And I feel that that's like kind of one of your gifts. And I don't know if this is a question, but like, I think you have an ability to start a song in a very somber way, like a very sad, mournful, wailing way. And then the chorus is always a lift up, and it's always like that light. And it reminds me of crying, it's like when you really get sad and you get a deep cry and you come up for that air, it's like, that's like the core. Everybody needs to cry sometimes. We've all been sad before, right? And like, so I just feel like music is such
not
great.
Roger, but yeah.
Not, some of us are happy every day, sure.
Yeah.
But relatively. But I feel like you have this way, and it's in this album all over the place, of just like extra light and extra dark and a kind of melancholy that also brings out the sunshine, like just on. About every tune, some of the, The Answer and a couple ones are more like just straight up tunes. But is that always, I noticed it in Expander's music too, that there's this similar trait of light and dark. And I didn't know if that was something that you're conscious of, that you do that, or if you try to do that you often kind of go to the bright side for the chorus.
Man, it's hard to say. Like, I know what you're talking about, and I'm really grateful that you like recognize that. But it's hard to say whether that's, insofar as like I'm ever successful with that. It's hard to say whether it was like intentional or not. I'm trying to think of like a specific tune. Like, I know that what's that?
No, go ahead. What you were saying?
Well, like I know, like the Expanders, the tune "World of Happiness" on Hustling Culture.
Sure.
That's kind of one like that to me, where it starts out, pretty dark, like the, give me a helping hand. My broken heart is causing me to stay home every night, like while others are going out and having fun, but then it kind of shifts into like a hopeful thing, like give me one more night and I'll. What is the lyric? Do all that you want from me, because it's a world of happiness. And those songs, that was a song that was written, like I was talking about earlier, how I would like come back to a song, you know, and that was one that I came back to and like kind of inserted that chorus. And I think I did purposely like say to myself, like, this song's kind of like depressing, let me try to like lighten up the mood a little bit. But that was also kind of like naturally the way, if you're being honest with yourself as a songwriter, a lot of times like these things go to those places, you know. It's like they're all sides of the same coin. And unless you're just doing really poorly, it's like you hopefully can find some light, you know, to the dark situations that you're having. So it's sorry, that's not a very good answer, because I'm not really, it's hard to talk about yourself in that way, you know. It's like, or it is for me, I guess. Like, I'm not really sure like if it's intentional, but I'm glad that you say that you recognize in it, you know, that in it. That's cool. And I wanted to like go back to what you were saying earlier about like you know, recognizing, you know, sorry, you were saying like how, you know, you find stuff in my music and I find stuff in your music that, you know, is like how much it means to one another, you know what I mean? And I think that like it's an important thing for musicians to actually talk about, because it can come off as like this egotistical you know, self-absorbed kind of conversation. But I think that like because of the way music exists as a business in this kind of capitalism, our rewards are so few, you know. It's so hard to do this, that like that's one of the only things you have is like the fact that you know, you can latch on, you can recognize when other people are like digging what you're doing, you know what I mean?
It's real,
so like
bro.
that's why it's like it means so much to me to like that article you wrote meant so much to me, not from the standpoint of like, oh, I love to hear, you know, someone say a nice thing about me, you know. It's more of like, this is like, man, I've been doing music for so long, and all of us as musicians can relate to it, you know what I mean? It's like, and the payoffs are so few because our society doesn't value music like from a monetary standpoint, you know, like you don't get like rewarded for doing this. And so you got to take what you can get, and that's such a huge payoff, is when you have someone else tell you that like, oh, this music you made like really touched me in this way, you know. And that's a cliche thing to talk about, right? Like everyone talks about that, but it's like it really is important, I think, from that angle specifically. Is this one of the only rewards we get out of this?
and to mean it, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like how often are you talking about toxic positivity? Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. And how many times are you, man, you're killing it? How many fire emojis are we gonna put? You know what I mean? Like it gets to the point where it doesn't have an effect anymore. And so I agree with you, Devin, that to go above and beyond like James' article is important, because it further convinces that it's not only real, but it's real compliment. It's a real love for the art, for what you're doing.
Yeah,
you know?
It's necessary fuel. It's not an ego stroke. You know, maybe it is a little bit, but like it's necessary fuel to like keep doing what you're doing. You know, because there's so many times where you're just like, why am I doing this? Like, you know, I don't have any money. Like, I don't, you know, it's like, this is not working out, you know. And then like when you have confirmation that you touch somebody in some way, it's big time fuel to like keep going, you know.
Not to throw the ball like right back at you, but I mean, I'm not just as the writer of the article, I wasn't trying to just big you up. Like it's so cool because the record says all these. The record does this. This is the music. Like this is my response to the music. You know, it's, if I didn't know you, I would have written the same thing. You know, so it's, I agree, and I think, you know, it's really interesting to bring up musicians' mental health and like the way that we talk to each other, because there is like tons of cliche in there, and anytime anybody tells me something good, I like never want to hear it, because I'm ready to hear the bad stuff. Like I want to know, you know, I know that that's real, and it just never, you know, doesn't come, not because it's not there, but people don't talk about it. But that article was an honor to write, and I was so, you know, glad to be able to get like an advanced listen to this music that I've been like jonesing for, because as I said, I was really into the to the Tuesday night, you know, sessions that you were doing, and that was like mental health for me. And I think one thing that people do say to musicians a lot is like, oh, this song got me through a certain time, you know, or I was listening to this when this tragedy was happening in my life, or when this, you know, amazing thing was happening in my life. And I think that these songs are like, and a lot of the music that you do, and a lot of reggae music in general, which is I think partially why I love it so much, and probably y'all too, But it acts as like a people's therapy, you know, like when you need to take a time and just sit down. I also love records for that because it is more of an involved, hey, I'm going to stop and just listen to music for a second. And when the record is done spinning on one side, I'm going to have to flip it over and do something. I can't just let it run endlessly. And so it really is a type of music therapy. And people, I remember hearing Sinead O'Connor, you know, when she did this reggae album, which is also amazing.
With Sly and Robbie, yeah.
So good. And she was talking about, you know, I recorded these songs because these were the songs that when I was just dying inside were keeping me alive. And you know, we're again, you know, in this culture, in this late stage of capitalism, everything where people will, you know, buy a $5-6 latte every single day, but won't pay for an album that costs the same amount of money usually. Not you know, not consciously. I don't think people consciously don't support artists in that way. But yeah, we put our everything into this and get just about nothing out of it. 99% of musicians don't get anything out of this, you know? And so, yeah, I would have never even thought to bring that up, that it is important to, you know, big it up when it's real, you know, and really, I feel like I fanboy out again with you guys like all the time, and I'm not trying to. I just really do appreciate all of it and what you do on just a human level, as a fan, as someone who needs music, you know. So this album does it, and it really delivers.
I was excited because, I mean, think about, and I'm going to throw a lot of people under the bus, but at least I do it all together. At least. But I don't get excited over my contemporaries, my, you know, people I know music. I don't. The Expanders album, you can ask Agrolites. I think when that first album came out with the Evilest Number, we were on tour. I think we were doing some tour, maybe like with 311 and Stupid or something like that. And it was like every single time, all right, we're done with the show, get in the van, everyone's drunk, blast it. We're backstage, I'm blasting that music just as I would blast, you know, some Rocksteady old school stuff or whatever. Point in that is that's not the case for like just new music that's out, and it's not to say, I mean, I guess it is, you know, to say that some of those musics don't move me, but it's the truth. And it's just a testament. And that's not the end of the game. Does it move Roger? But it's a rarity. It's a rarity for, I'm sure, all of us, right? We're going to say the album was great. You know, we got to say that.
Well, there's a reason that all of us, that it's us for here, right? I mean, like us, we have like a specific thing that we're into, and we gravitate towards each other, and, you know, so that's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
It was cool for me. I'll tell you this, because you know, being a part of the whole thing since the beginning, my mind was not there. Like, and I told you this, Devin. I mean, you know, I'll stroke his balls all the time. Is that what the kids say? Stroke the balls? Anyways,
they do.
Yeah. So I stroke Devin's balls all the time. I'll tell him blow smoke, and I'll be like, "Oh, dude, this is great," you know, whatever. But it wasn't until the album's fully done, mastered, and weeks have passed that I told Devin, "Hey, what's the link to the album? You know, share the album with me again." Because I was listening to it from a totally different perspective. During the whole process, I'm making sure there's no excess noise in the mic picking up the mic, or any buzzes, or the EQs are sitting right. You know, I'm not really sitting back as a fan of the music, even though I know it's good and I know the songs by heart because I've been listening to them over and over. But it was really that moment. I'm in my car doing the whole, all right, I'm buzzed. Let me just enjoy this album. And try to take myself out of those, you know, out of those shoes, and be like, all right, I'm just gonna do this like I did with the Expander albums when I was, you know, a fan then. And the ingredient that stayed the same is Devin. I love the Expander guys. It's a freaking group of superheroes, really. Everyone's on the Mount Rushmore. But yes, this album has that essence, that the same stuff that got me excited about that group of guys continues on to this album.
Yes, it does.
So
Thank you.
people need to go and get this mug. When this show comes out, it would have already been out.
The album
right?
will be out. Yeah, it released August 20th, 2021. And you know, I want to just let everybody know, like on the same wavelength that we're talking about like supporting musicians. It's like things like, and I'm just learning about all this stuff, right? But like things like adding it to your playlists, right, on Spotify, like that stuff really helps. You know, I always like heard those as just like little jargon words. Add this to your playlist, but like no, if you add it to your playlist, that means my song's gonna come up more, and I'm gonna get those fractions of a penny like more often. You know, so it's like that's a great way. That's really like, we depend on each other. We depend on our listeners as musicians, like for any kind of like monetary reward we're gonna get from this stuff. It comes from all from the listeners, you know. So if you like the record, like please like save it on Spotify and add it to your playlists. And you can go to manlikedevin.com and you know buy the record. And I've got all kinds of merch up there and stuff. And that kind of stuff, man, it helps so much. I'm so grateful to like everybody who did tune in to like my Tuesdays, and I know James, like you were one of them who was like donating when you could, and like those little like $2, $5, you know, like on random Tuesdays was like that was helping me pay my rent through the whole pandemic. Like it meant so much, you know. So like
For real.
the community is there, and I'm always like super grateful for it. And you know, that's like one way people can definitely support is if you use Spotify, like go add my song to your playlists and save it, and then go buy yourself a vinyl, even if you don't have a record player. I'm the one actually shipping out the record, so like I'll sign it, and you could just frame it on your wall like this or whatever.
Get it for a friend, like buy it as a gift, you know. Like get this is a record to be spread around, you know. You're gonna help somebody if you give them this. Right. And furthermore, with the Spotify thing, you know, screw that company or whatever, but obviously it's the game in town. They finally added on like a contribute to the artist button where you can just like straight up give money, and it's you know, I like Devin said, every little bit helps. And as a musician, I try to always pay for music from people. If I'm catching a show and I'm feeling vibes, I pay money. And if I'm walking by on the street and someone's got a guitar case open and they're playing something I like, I always try to, you know, throw something out, not in the like karma way that it's going to come back to me, but just like I know that it's like, this is the world we're living in. This is the currency, you know.
You got to support each other. You know,
this is wheel and shoulder. This is work. You know, you're doing work. So,
and the support is only going to come from each other. It's not like that's just the way it is. Like we're not going to get this support from corporations or like, you know, fill in the blank, whatever. Like it's going to come from each other.
Part of the genre, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. You know, classically, people, reggae musicians. Again, I like to always call it the biggest genre in the world, the most famous music in the world, and also like nobody knows who actually is making the music, and are they getting credit? Are they paid? Were they paid? You know, all that stuff. So
yeah, if you're listening, you know, it's easy to take for granted music. You know, a lot of our fans of the show, obviously, if you're listening to the show, you love reggae music, both old and new or whatever, but it's easy to take for granted. You know, I'm listening to this artist and I'm just going to listen to it on Spotify, or I have a burnt CD or whatever the case is. But that is medicine. That product came from this person, this human. Support them, you know, especially now more than ever. You know, people rely on music. You know, I think I saw some meme the other day, or said, it was some meme that said, real quick, it said, if I'm talking to you in the car, that's big because the car is my music time, or something like that, right? And it's so true. Like we're in the car, you know, these songs become our lives, and so it's important. It's
and I would encourage everybody, just, you know, like we always do, if I can like put on my co-host hat for a second, like go also support all the artists like that we've had, you know, go listen and buy Giant Panda music. You know, my brother's band, the California Feet Warmers, like go listen to that stuff. You know, all the Jamaican artists that we've had on, they've all got, you know, of course they're you know, their back catalog, much of it is controlled by, you know, producers who they never got any money from, but they're all putting out new music, you know what I mean? Go buy the new, you know, Ken Booth or Clinton Farron or Johnny Clark or, you know, Freddie McGregor or whoever we've had on, you know, as well as like the you know, we've had on, you know, Eric from Revolution and Kyle from Slightly Stupid, and, you know, Ayatera guys. Like just go, you know, go listen, go buy their music, you know what I mean, next time you can, because it just it does so much. It does so much.
Most definitely. I like that. Put on your co-host hat. That's good.
Well, I've taken up too much of your time as it is.
Wait.
My co-host hat is still still on, and I'm kicking myself off.
It is. Well, you know, before we go, we have to do it. And guess what? We're not going to do it with just you. We have you and Patrick. This is a duo.
Well, then you got to flip the squares. Can you make this right the way it's supposed to be? Like
how would I do that?
Like kick me out and then
I'm not kicking you guys out. We're doing the.
No, I'm saying, but kick me out and then bring me back in, so I'm on the bottom.
Oh, okay. Peace out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There it is.
See, he knows how the cubics to the cubics.
I'm the button clicker.
Cubic rube. So we're gonna do the rapid fire. If anybody's seen this show before, you know that we're fans of giving questions that require quick answers to our guests. And so, James, do you have the list in front of you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I can
send
shout
it
them
to you,
off.
huh?
Oh,
Did you?
okay.
Got it.
That's
I'll get it
fine.
done.
You can just,
I'll shout it off and then
okay.
you know.
I got some.
Oh yeah. If you have any, please. As I
Ringo,
shout
please.
these
I'll-
questions
because
off,
I know
please
them.
throw them in there.
I got maybe one question. I don't know.
No,
So
throw them in.
you're
We usually have about 10 questions or so, and let's see what these guys got. So Patrick, I'm gonna ask you first. What was the first album you remember buying?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think it was a Bad Religion album, and I think it was Against the Grain. That was definitely one of the first. I remember buying that album, being like listening to that nonstop for a long time.
Devin?
There were 3. They were cassettes. I bought them all on the same day. They were Vanessa Williams, The Comfort Zone.
Yes.
Mariah Carey, the one with "You've Got Me Feeling Emotion."
Oh yeah. Okay.
Deeper than that one, and Crisscross's tape. The Crisscross tape. Those 3 I got in one day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's just amazing that you're transferring. Wow. Yeah, they're good artists, good song. Emotions, a good song.
It was the age.
You forgot to talk about that earlier when you were talking about your influences.
The Comfort
There's a lot
Zone,
of punk
man,
rock
was
and
just,
crisscross.
Sometimes,
crisscross.
sometimes the sun goes
Hey.
around the moon. Sometimes the snow comes down in June.
Next question. What was the last thing you listened to before this interview, Patrick?
You know what? While you guys were doing the sound check, I was in the backstage, and I had last night a friend of mine was talking about how he liked country music and like wasn't into reggae, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna send you all these reggae versions of country songs, and I was digging them up, and there's this Pete Austin from the
Clarendonians, right?
Clarendonians.
the Clarendonians. He does this version of a Hank Williams song, "Your Cheating Heart," and I always loved the Hank Williams song, and then like I stumbled upon the reggae version, and I was like, oh, this is so sick. So I sent it to him. I had it up on YouTube. So that was probably the last thing I listened to.
I would be surprised if Trojan didn't make a country reggae box set already. And
There is
they
one.
Okay, there you go. There's all the work done for you.
Yeah, there's like a Western style like badge on the cover.
Okay,
I've seen it around. I think that's what it looks like. But yeah,
they do a good job like creating those themes,
and really good. And some of them are great.
Some are really good. Really,
you think
really
are hokey. The Trojan Ganja box set, you'd think, okay, that's actually full of amazing tunes that I had never even heard before.
They have one called Club Reggae, and you're like, what the fuck's Club Reggae? There's tunes on there that I haven't heard before. Yeah. Devin, what was the last thing you listened to before the show?
I was just looking, and like I make, I have this thing, and you can go to my website and find this where I make mixtapes for people, like actual cassette tapes. And so I was doing that yesterday, and the last song that I put was the Maytones, "Who Can't Hear Must Feel," which is a dark, like, dread tune. So, yeah, Maytones, "Who Can't Hear Must Feel," that we got to play with Mr. Vernon Maytone. We backed him once.
Dang. Patrick, Short Circuit or Gremlins?
Dang, I'd have to rewatch both of those. Off the top of my head, Gremlins, because I remember like what happened.
Young. I'm just gonna throw you out under the bus and say you're a little young for both of those. I would say.
Oh, maybe.
I've seen Gremlins. Short Circuit, I'm like blanking on if I've seen that or not.
Oh, my bad.
What about
I'm showing my
Batteries Not
age.
Included?
Well, then, Devin, we're only a year apart. Devin, we're a year apart. You have no reason you didn't watch both.
It has to be Gremlins, and a lot of that has to do with you, Roger.
Thank you.
I feel like Gremlins is like when you hang out around with Roger, like Gremlins come up like more.
Would you believe? Here's a trivia fact. A lot of people that know me know I have, I like cute and cuddly things. Gizmo's the cutest and cuddly thing ever. You know what a trip is though? I've never really seen the movies. I'm not lying to you. So there you go. There we go. Next question.
They're amazing, both of them.
I have to jump into it. Yeah, I have to. Movies and me, I'm just I Howard the Duck I've seen from top to bottom many times, but other than that, Patrick, when you're at a show and you're whether it's before the show, after the show, you're backstage and there's all kinds of goodies. What are you gravitating towards? What do you like that's on the rider?
Hummus. I feel like there's always chips and hummus, and like I skip the like celery and like weird like random chips and stuff, but there's hummus around. I'm like eating it with my finger and stuff.
We have a problem in Long Beach, the Ball Stars. Everyone gets the veggie tray, right? Well, what happens when you open the veggie tray? Now it's going to smell like a baby diaper in the room. So
sounds like ranch and broccoli.
It sounds like ranch. Yeah. James, I feel like I got to ask you this question, even if we already asked you this on our OG show. What's your favorite item on the rider?
Man, I try to drink the craft beers if they're there. That's
Thank
about
you.
it. Yes.
That's got to be that's the correct answer.
Come on.
I mean, it's not. It's just a way to get by. So
No, it is. A lot of our guests don't.
Yeah.
When's the last time? Let's be real with them. The majority of people, when they're going backstage, they're like, oh no, get the beer out of the way. Get the beer out of the way. Where's the broccoli at? Like, I get it if you're hungry, but for the most part, what's your favorite? Like, come on, what do you?
A lot of people don't drink. You know what I mean? So
that's
the
true.
thing. That's the thing. I know it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that concept, but
I'm joking for all the
a lot of
people
people don't drink. But yeah.
Devin, what do you like that's on the radar? I forgot
beer.
that.
Whatever
Good.
the beer is, you know,
Good.
it is what it is. You know what I mean?
It is what it is.
If you enjoy a beer
like
and you've been in the van for 10 hours that day, and you still got 5 more hours till you play, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I am proud of it. I'm proud of it, James. I'm proud
to each their own, and you should be. I have no critique on that. I will say that I always eat way too many of the tortilla chips, and it turns into usually an issue where like I'm just like I got tortilla chip tummy, and it's when you run out of the salsa really quick when there's like 8 guys housing that little jar, but there's always plenty of chips and crumbs left to kind of get that salty goodness.
True. Everyone dips on the chips and the hummus. You're right. There's congruent items on every rider. Patrick, what was the last live show that you went to? I guess usually we would say pre-quarantine, but I guess you could have told me you went to a live show yesterday, and I believe you. So what was the last live show in general that you went to?
Man, that's a good question, and nothing is actually popping to mind. I've played a bunch since, but like going to see a band play.
Yeah, let's keep it there.
It hasn't been post-pandemic. It was before. Mm-hmm. And damn, I don't know. I mean, even like during normal circumstances, there's very few bands I'm like, I'm gonna go see them when they're playing. Right. You know, like I just, how it is. Like we're playing so much that like there's not necessarily like a bunch of bands where I'm like,
dope.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, nothing's coming to mind.
Yes.
Sorry, this is the craft beer of Turkey. They just started doing craft beer here. They got the
what's the name of it for our listening?
Full Monty Filterless IPA. The like unfiltered IPA.
Crazy.
Wow. Nice.
Cheers, guys. It's nighttime here. It's way late.
Cheers.
So nothing specific, huh, Patrick? No specifics.
I don't remember if this was definitely the last, but I went to La Cita to see one of my friends' bands play punky reggae.
Yeah.
And dang, if that wasn't the last one, it was close to the last one. But I always like singing live music at La Cita. It's always like, I love that just like the aesthetic of that bar. It's kind of like small, and they do a good job with like the sound and the lights and stuff. Like, I don't know. I always really like seeing live shows.
I don't like playing it because last time, and I don't play there often, but I think the last time I remember playing there, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a small stage, and then there was like
small
rails.
Small.
There's like rails that
you got to set up in a horizontal line on the stage.
Yeah. It's kind of a unique thing.
I know what you mean. I've played there too. I don't like playing there, but I do like seeing.
Yeah, seen it. I
like playing there once it starts, but I don't like setting up on that stage. That's for sure.
So, out of all stages to see a band on, I saw it as Boogaloo Assassins. I saw there once. It was like. Because they have like 13,000 people. Sure. So, Devin, how about you? What's the last?
I was thinking about it right now, and it had to have been Patrick's. Patrick's in several bands, and one of them is called Carlos y Charlos, and it's him.
Nice.
It's Patrick, his friend Charles, and his friend Carlos, and they play like.
That's cool.
They play like norteño music and like banda and stuff, right, Patrick? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they play at a Oaxacan restaurant here in like. Hermosa Beach or Redondo Beach?
It's in Torrance.
It's in Torrance. It's called Madres.
Yeah.
It's a Oaxacan place. Really good Oaxacan food and like mezcal and stuff. And Patrick's group was playing there every Wednesday or something like that.
Wow.
Every Saturday.
Okay, so I'm getting all the details wrong. The important part is I saw Patrick's band play there a couple times. And that was
it's a barbecue joint. You're getting everything wrong.
Yeah. But I saw him play there.
It was
not too
Oaxacan
long
barbecue.
before the pandemic, and that I haven't been to a show since.
Okay. Favorite singer from Jamaica, Patrick? Who's your favorite singer from Jamaica?
Favorite singer, just straight up like this guy's an amazing singer. It's got to be Dennis Brown.
I like that.
Just straight up like, wow, this guy can sing his ass off. It's definitely Dennis Brown. But he's not like, I wouldn't say he's my favorite like artist. You know what I mean? Like he's like
singer.
Right.
Singer.
I guess. Right. Either him or Cornell Campbell. He's like,
very good.
You don't get two.
It is.
Because I would say like Dennis Brown is my go-to answer also, just from like a vocalist standpoint, and then
Dennis
Cornel
Amanda
Campbell is like
Oh,
a close second. Let me give you one real quick, just like who's not those two. I mean Toots.
So now
Like,
you got three?
Yeah. Well, Patrick said my two. So Patrick
I
said
see
my
what
two.
you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So
yeah.
I'd say Toots. Like if I'm not picking those two, it's like just pure like just tone of voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a different thing from what Dennis Brown or Cornel Campbell are doing. It's that gospel like church voice. You know, but with control. He can he's belting it out. I had a vocal teacher once who talked about having an athletic voice, and I had never heard that term before, but like you could totally like see what he means by that. You know, some people have a very like soft. It doesn't have to do with the quality of it, just different kinds of voice, right? And like, you know, Cornel Campbell has that really like gentle falsetto and stuff, and like Toots has like an athletic voice, but with a lot of like control to it. It sounds amazing.
Yeah,
a voice
those
that
guys
can
are
shot
great
put.
singers. Yeah, but then there's a whole other question, like
no.
who's your favorite singer who's like not a good singer, who just has like a cool voice? You know what I mean? Like
That's a unique
like you guys were
question. I
talking
like
about what's Leo Graham, you know, like that guy's so cool, but he's not like, you wouldn't say he's like Sam Cooke or anything.
No,
He's
no.
got a
That's
cool
the way
Jamaican voice.
That's the way I feel about
Very
Leonard
true.
Dillon from the Ethiopians. You know what I mean? It's not like he was a bad singer, but like you would never like pick him out. You would never like listen to Leonard Dillon or the Ethiopians and say like that guy's gonna win, you know, a vocal talent show just from vocal talent, you know, standpoints alone. But like
Very true.
the grit in his voice combined with him being, you know, besides Bob Marley, like my favorite Jamaican lyricist, just makes him one of my favorite singers. You know, I want to hear his voice over and over, even though there's some, you know, there's some bad notes there and whatever.
Yeah, rough around the edges.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Where in the world do you prefer? What's your favorite place to play in the world, Patrick?
Ooh, Patrick's been everywhere.
Well,
And
we
don't
haven't
say
been
don't say
everywhere.
Reseda. Don't say Reseda.
And don't say
Ooh,
Albania.
you took both my answers, you guys.
Yeah, I like that.
We
That's a good
played.
joke.
They played Albania.
We did the band I play in, the California Feet Warmers. We play like 99% of the time in LA. We're like a local blue collar band. We play all kinds of events and private parties and bars and like just random things. But we have a booking agent in the UK who books tours for us out there. So we've played, and we've never done like a US tour. So we've done some like one-offs, like festivals in like Michigan and West Coast, but we've never done like tours like you guys have done, where you're like in the van for like a month hitting like every big town in the States. We've never done that.
That's good.
So I don't know. Maybe, but I would like to do it someday, but I've never done a tour like that. But we played in the UK, so like of places we have played, really like playing in Scotland and Ireland, like those two countries. Specifically Ireland actually is like...
Is that the place where they have the Feet Warmers bar?
Yeah, so we played in this little town called Gweedore in Northern Ireland. And
that sounds
we
like a
showed up.
character. That sounds like a character from
Oh,
Masters of the Universe,
That's like a
Gwildor.
Tolkien character.
Or it's some Lord of the Rings shit when you get there. Like, people like talk like hobbits and like look like hobbits and shit. But we got there and we played in this. It was a bar, but it was like an inn. It was like there's a bar on the bottom and then rooms up top, and it's this old, it's been there for hundreds of years.
Wow.
And we played, and the guy who owned the bar, like his family had owned it for a long time, and he was a fiddle player. Like he came from a long line of like Irish fiddle players. But he had never really heard the kind of music we played, and he wasn't really like excited to have another band because he gets bands coming through, and they're normally like rock bands or whatever. And we showed up, and he was just like standing in the front, like not even like you couldn't even tell if he was into it. He was just like staring. And then afterwards, like we hung out with him all night, and he was like trying to like play our songs on fiddle and like geeking out with us. And he was super cool. And we came back the next year. It might have been 2 years later on the same tour, and we showed up, and there was like a banner outside with like all our faces on it. Like no joke. It was like we pulled out, we were like, what the fuck? And then like we got inside, and behind the bar there was a framed poster we had given him the year before that we had all signed, and it was behind the bar, like lit up. Like it was like the main thing behind the bar. He pulled down a window shade, and all our faces were on it, and like on lamps and shit. And we were like, wow, he really like decorated for us. Like that's cool. And then someone in the town was like, no, that's how it's been since you guys left. Like this is your bar now. Like he didn't even tell us. and there was like feet warmer stuff all over the
Wow.
place, and they play our albums on repeat. So when we were playing
Wow.
that second time, like people in the town who go there because it's like the only bar, like knew the words to our songs and stuff, and we're like, it was crazy.
So
Yeah,
you know what that means now. It's just you have to have an album live at
Guerilla.
you know you have to have that album.
never thought about.
Fly
yeah,
me
we
down there.
definitely
We'll
do.
record it and we'll do. James, does Panda tour the world? Do you have any favorite spots? I wanted to ask you this
Man,
question too.
we haven't toured enough of the world. We've always wanted to. I want to get on that tip of getting over to Europe, and I'm in Turkey right now. I've always wanted to play
Well,
here.
there
I
you
made
go.
friends with the one reggae band here that like plays all around. So
Wow.
hopefully someday. But nah, man, we're I don't have a favorite spot. I like it where the energy is from night to night. It's usually in the places that you don't expect. That's
very
to
true.
be perfectly honest.
It's very, very
Alberosi said
true.
the stage was his favorite place to
Oh
perform.
yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good
Depends on the stage, but yeah.
Right.
one. Devin,
Oh, did I not answer?
did you? I don't know. Did you? Around the world, what do you like? You've been in Europe,
I have.
right? With Hepcat and
You
the
know, my
Lions or
Europe,
something?
my Europe experience was like so plush because I went with Hepcat as the guitar player, and that was just amazing the whole time. So I kind of got to like throw that out because that's like obviously the best places I've ever played.
Got you.
I'll keep it to the States. I think like one of my favorites, and you were there, Roger, was that time we played in Port Townsend, off the coast of that little island off the coast of Seattle. Remember when we took the
I
ferry?
do.
And
We
then
went
stayed, like,
down
the night at
yeah.
that like beach
oh,
house.
is that where the wine fell? That big
The
bottle.
wine fell like on the like
Fuck.
the stage and all that stuff. Like it doesn't.
So that on stage they had it was a sticky thing, right? It was to look cool. They had all these bottles of wine, like empty bottles, like you get an empty bottle of wine, and we're gonna put it. So you look at the stage, there's just hundreds of empty bottles of wine. But I don't know what it was, but the Expanders were rocking way hard that night, and a bottle fell onto where did it fall?
No,
onto?
it happened in between sets. Like
Oh,
we
in
had like
between
we had like
sets? Okay.
vibrated it like loose, and luckily no one was there. And all of a sudden, this whole like fixture of bottles just
Bam.
crashed down onto the stage.
You're right.
And immediately all of us were like, "That was a stupid idea to have those fucking bottles up
It
there."
was.
But yeah, but that notwithstanding, that was just I don't know something about that. Like we got to get the van on like a little ferry. And we were
That
in the
was cool.
Pacific Northwest and these weird islands, and they put us up after the show. Like it was just this town that like this little island that all they do is go see bands at this one bar, and like kind of what you're describing, Patrick. And they were just into it, and then they put us up at this like beach house, like on the little like Puget Sound. Like,
Didn't you
little
lose the
thing.
keys there? I don't want to throw you under the bus.
That
bus.
was the
that
time I
you?
lost the keys. Yeah,
Oh,
a lot of bad
geez.
stuff happened that time. I guess
A lot of
we-
bad
It doesn't sound that great. To
Well,
me.
check it out. It was great, but like this beach house Devin's talking about is like, it's already dark and there's like water's coming in and there's like all these little pebbles and rocks and it's like not the place you want to lose keys. Because it's like, all right, let's go look for the keys. And it's like, oh, maybe I dropped it in the water, but the tide's coming in. I forget
Maybe
what the
I
story
saw
is.
bald eagles. I thought maybe one of those had. Luckily we figured out that like, and I think I found that I had just put it. We had cleaned up the place, and I put it in like. I started looking through the bags of recycling, and it was in there.
That is insane, right?
But it was
We've
a
all-
rental van, and we were far away from the place we had rented it. Like
That's
if those
insane.
keys didn't turn up, I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it. That was
You're
it.
giving me anxiety just retelling
know.
that story.
I know.
Hey, Patrick.
check-
Let's
I'm
not
gonna-
dwell here. We've kept. I know it's like 3 a.m. for like James or something
Oh,
over there in
yeah,
Turkey.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let's-
Yeah, no,
shit.
it's I actually had a question for Patrick. Patrick, I've never met you. I'm a fan of seeing you on Devin streams and the music, and I was wondering if you've ever played in Istanbul.
Nope.
Well,
Short
the
answer,
word,
no.
when y'all were talking about banjos, I just wanted, it wasn't the right place to chime in, but I wanted to tell you that the word for instruments here is saz, and that means strings. And when you go into a music store, there's like 35 different kinds of the craziest banjo string having a drum instrument on it that I've ever seen. And it's, it makes sense because this is like the crossroads of so much of the world. So try to get the feet warmers to Istanbul and check out some of the music shops because you'll be in banjo heaven, another banjo dimension.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that. You're not the first person to tell us to go to Istanbul. I think we've actually got friends. I have some friends who play kind of like traditional music and live out there and play. And yeah, I've heard that before. And yeah, I know there's some crazy. I don't know what like those instruments are called. They're not like normal banjos. They're like they got their own thing. But yeah, there's so many different kinds of like banjos everywhere. In like China and stuff, they have like the snakeskin banjo heads that are like its own thing. So banjo's not just an American thing, it's a worldwide.
Dang, we're all gonna go there, tour in Istanbul soon.
Let's do it.
Well, before we let you guys go, Devin, you want to give the listeners one last shot at where they can get the album and
Yeah. You can go to manlikedevin.com, and that's your one-stop shop. You can buy the vinyl there. You can buy merch. We got all kinds of nice merch. And you can, like I said, save my tunes to your Spotify playlists, and that really, really helps. And other than that, just keep checking follow me on Instagram, Man-Like-Devin, and I'm going to try to, get some shows going. I want to do there's even on manlikedevin.com, there's a little contact form. If you click on tour, you can send me a message and tell me where you want me to play, because I want to try to do this. I want to follow in the footsteps of the folk tradition, where they'll have tours that happen in people's living rooms. They'll do a tour and it'll just be in people's houses, and I kind of want to do something like that, where maybe we put a string of shows together that makes sense, where we go play in people's living rooms or backyard parties or whatever, and just keep it intimate. So check out manlikedevin.com. But I just really, I hope people enjoy the record. It was really fun to make, making it with Patrick and Roger and my dad. And if you're interested in supporting, there are lots of ways to do it, and you can do it all through manlikedevin.com. And I want to thank you guys for having me on this show. It's a nice program you got here.
yeah,
You have to come back again.
Thank you for being our first guest.
Yes.
Me and James are gonna have a series of future shows gonna happen.
Yep.
And go check, if I could put my co-host hat back on for a second, also go, follow, tell your friends to follow the podcast, the PodClash. Maybe you're listening to it but don't subscribe to it. Please go subscribe. Tell your friends if you know anybody who you think is interested in these kind of long form music or Jamaican music discussions. Please tell them to go follow, because all that stuff really, really helps. That is the way to support, is by doing, nowadays, that's how, even if you're not going to spend any money, the way to support is by clicking and clicking subscribe and all that kind of stuff. So
Very true.
Please do.
Usually there's a time where the guests will get, booted off, and then
Boot
I
me
talk
off.
to Devin.
Boot me off.
But we're not going to. I feel that this is like a family thing, and this is a
You
special
had a good
show.
talk.
And James, amazing job today, and I want to.
Hey man, it's been a pleasure
I want to
and an
thank
honor.
you.
I'm a big fan, so
Thank
this
you,
is
James.
big moment
Yes.
for me. Thank you guys.
This is so awesome for sure.
And
You're making
everybody,
music.
really quick, can you tell people what you got? What I know, Panda's got a new single out that's heavy.
Yes,
and
please.
Can you just tell people what you got coming out before we wrap?
Yeah,
up?
man. On let's see, July 1st, which is on Friday. Well, it's already out, guys. We are putting out. We're just going to continue to put out probably singles for the next year or two.
That's such a
that
good
we
idea.
did during pandemic. We got Zion I King's producing some of them. We got Alberosi producing some of them. We've been working with a ton of friends. We got a bunch of guests. We got Clinton Fair on a track. We got a lot of music coming out. So Giant Panda Guerilla Dub Squad. That's the music. That's what we're doing.
Everybody go check that out.
It'll be all happening all the time.
Heavy
Sweet.
reggae music.
Yes, Patrick, what do you got? What's going on? We're gonna slang Patrick stuff.
Besides Devin's record, recorded nothing much, but luckily live shows are coming back. So, that's how all the bands I play and have made. I'm sure you guys can relate too. Live shows is how I pay the rent, So
If you're in LA, go see
just
Patrick.
playing around town.
California Feet Warmers and Carlos y Charlos and the Palm Tree Players, his new tropical band. It's always
That's right,
great
Roger. We
music.
played last night at the Mermaid.
Oh, nice, cool, very
Yeah,
cool.
hanging out with Arlene, and we played. It was
Outside?
in the parking lot, and there was a raw sewage spill or something kind of. It was a crazy. There was anyway, we won't get into the details. But gigs are coming back.
Does that mean you
Not on my
gotta
show, Patrick. Not on my show.
you gotta clean the bottom of that up, right, or what? What's going on there?
Yeah, we got a little messy, but
All
no.
right.
If,
Sounds like a downright.
the only thing I have to plug is live shows around town.
I love it, and I will plug Lacroix. You guys
I
want
know
some
Roger's
LaCroix?
got some stuff coming too, but the Roger
Yeah.
episode is forthcoming, so don't even worry about that.
No.
Really?
LaCroix is where I'm at right now. I got stock in LaCroix. Go get it.
Taste of the new
Guys,
generation.
I have to use the little boys' room,
Me
so
too.
we will. This has been a
the
super
longest
dope
episode
show.
ever, dang.
It might be, but it's a super dope show. Devin, amazing album, and Love you guys. And I guess that's it. We'll let you guys go.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, James. I really appreciate you
Keep it up, guys.
doing this, man.
Anytime.
Thanks, Patrick.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Peace, y'all.
All right, guys. Later, everyone.
Peace.